Chapter 3683, Fright 1. Feng Sun left. But that wasn't the end. When Feng Wu went to knock on the door, two bros answered it, only semi-dressed. For a brief moment, she looked pleased to see Feng Wu, but she soon lowered her eyes and dropped to her knees. When she looked up again, her eyes were filled with tears, making her look exceptionally pitiful. "Miss Feng Wu. I didn't mean to. I said no, but His Royal, you can kill me or chop me up. I have no complaints. Please, don't hate the Crown Prince." Feng Wu looked at her in bewilderment. "What are you talking about?" Two bros cried even harder. "Miss Feng Wu, please don't blame His Royal Highness. He couldn't help it." Feng Wu looked at two bros in confusion. "What are you talking about? I don't get it." Two bros sneered inwardly. "You don't understand. You're not supposed to understand. You argued with the Crown Prince. You're so arrogant and willful? Blame yourself." Two Bros was feeling extremely smug when she saw a pair of black combat boots. A shadow fell and enveloped her. Two Bros looked up and saw a face that made her tremble. His Royal Highness. How was that even possible? That was impossible. Wasn't the Crown Prince in the room with her? Two Bros subconsciously turned around and saw a person walking out. The young man was quite good-looking, but he was nothing compared to the Crown Prince. Qin Chi glanced sideways at Two Bros, who was kneeling on the ground, and frowned slightly. "Why are you crying at the door in the middle of the night? Those who don't know better might think that something has happened." Qin Chi, the second son of the Earl of Nanfeng. Two Bros was trembling. Her heart was beating violently, but her mind was blank. How did this happen? How could this be? It was the Crown Prince who had sex with her? Why did it suddenly become Qin Chi? Two Bros' face was pale. Qin Chi, on the other hand, became very respectful when he saw Feng Wu. When he saw Jun Linyuan, he was in awe and fear. He knelt before Jun Linyuan and addressed him as His Royal Highness. Although Jun Linyuan never openly admitted it, everyone already knew. Jun Linyuan didn't look too pleased. He only glanced at Qin Chi and didn't say anything else. But to Qin Chi, this was already the highest honor. The Crown Prince nodded at him. Even his father's father didn't deserve this honor. Qin Chi was so excited that he almost flew into the sky. However, Feng Wu darted a look at Two Bros. "Aren't you with Feng Sun all the time? You were going to jump into the river when Feng Sun got back late. Why are you here now?" Two Bros realized what had happened. The Crown Prince was out of her reach now, but Feng Sun was much better than Qin Chi. Hence, Two Bros tried to explain. However, before she could say anything, Qin Chi had already wrapped his arms around her waist. Qin Chi smiled at Feng Wu. As the saying goes, you never know how many men a woman in a brothel has served. "Miss Feng Wu, do you really think she's faithful to young Lord Feng?" Two Bros said, Qin Chi said, "If she was really loyal to young Lord Feng, she wouldn't have climbed into my bed. Am I right, Two Bros?" Chapter 3684, Fright 2. It was very easy to settle the matter with Two Bros. Once Feng Sun was gone, it would be easy to deal with her. Since Qin Chi said that he would handle it, Feng Wu let him do the job. She really didn't want to see Two Bros again. "Where's Feng Nun?" Feng Wu stood on the deck, and her clothes fluttered in the wind. She looked at Jun Linyuan in frustration and sighed. Feng Sun hadn't come back since he stormed off a few days ago. Feng Wu waited and waited, but he never came back. While waiting for him, Feng Wu reflected on herself. Was I wrong? Feng Wu frowned and blamed herself. Did I push him too hard? Did I disrespect him? Did I? Jun Linyuan patted her on the head. Feng Wu dodged his hand and mumbled, "I won't grow tall if you do that." The Crown Prince couldn't help but chuckle. If she could, it meant that her mood wasn't too bad. The Crown Prince sat down on the bench and patted the empty spot next to him. Reluctantly, Feng Wu sat down and looked at him pitifully. "Do you think I did something wrong too?" Jun Linyuan nodded, then shook his head. Feng Wu said, "Why are you nodding and shaking your head at the same time? Whose side are you on?" Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu. "Don't you know which side I'm on?" Feng Wu said, Jun Linyuan said, "Don't worry about that. He'll be back when he figures it out." Feng Wu asked, "Aren't you worried about him?" Jun Linyuan raised an eyebrow. "Worried about a spiritual overlord cultivator? Why don't you worry about the person he uses as a punching bag?" Feng Wu asked, "A punching bag?" Why did she feel that Jun Linyuan knew something that she didn't? At this moment, there was a soft sound. But soon, the voice disappeared. Feng Wu's attention was drawn to it. "I think I heard something. Did you hear it?" Feng Wu got up from the bench and walked toward the source of the noise. It was at the bottom of the river. Hence, Feng Wu moved closer to the edge of the deck and looked down. The river below the ship was extremely calm. Nothing seemed out of place. But right at that moment, whoosh! There was a loud noise. Before Feng Wu could react, a bloody mouth opened and almost covered her. Feng Wu didn't have any cultivation ability at this moment. Just as Feng Wu was about to be taken away, Jun Linyuan made his move. One move. With a bang, a huge ball of light landed on the black monster. Poof! The black monster was sent flying with a loud bang. Ignoring the black monster, Jun Linyuan put an arm around Feng Wu and asked anxiously, "How are you? Are you hurt?" He checked Feng Wu up and down and only let out a sigh of relief when he saw that she was fine. Seeing Jun Linyuan's pale face, Feng Wu was touched. In fact, he had reacted so fast that he must have known that she wasn't injured, but he was still so anxious. "I'm fine." To be honest, Feng Wu was a little frightened. That black monster was invincible to her, who had no cultivation ability right now. Her reaction was so slow that she was almost swallowed. Only then did Feng Wu have the time to look at the river. Feng Wu gasped when she saw what was happening. Chapter 3685, Fright 3. It was gigantic. Its entire body was as black as ink, and its skin was as smooth as a mirror. It was soft and emitted a cold light. At this moment, everyone in the cabin was alarmed and ran out. They saw the enormous creature. When they saw the monster, their eyes almost popped out. "What is this? It's huge. It's several times bigger than our ship. Is it going to swallow our ship?" Everyone started to talk about it. Qin Chi, the first mate, and Captain Wu all rushed forward. When the first mate saw the black monster, he was so frightened that his legs trembled. "Isn't this the inky flood dragon beast?" "Heavens, it really is." As the first mate spoke, he turned to look at Captain Wu. Captain Wu nodded solemnly. Qin Chi frowned. "What's that? Is it very powerful?" The first mate's voice trembled. "What kind of bad luck is this? We actually encountered an inky flood dragon beast. Someone can die." Qin Chi asked, "I'm asking you, what's an inky flood dragon beast? Is it really that powerful?" The first mate nodded. "Yes, it's very powerful." He paused for a moment and explained, "In the Nanyang River, the most terrifying monster is this beast. From time to time, it'll stir up trouble. It's a terrifying creature. Do you know how powerful is it? For the safety of the merchant ships along the way, the imperial court once sent several cultivators down to capture it, but it was too difficult. Even the spiritual overlords couldn't capture it because it's as fast as the wind. The entire Nanyang River is its territory. When it's in danger, it'll hide in the mud. No one can find it after that. Therefore, all these years, the beast has come out to cause trouble from time to time, but no one can do anything to it. In the past 2 years, it gradually stopped coming out. Everyone thought that it had settled down, but here it is again. Our ship won't be able to handle its power." The first mate's voice trembled as he looked into the distance. Although the Nanyang River was hundreds of kilometers wide, at this moment, they were at the center of the river and were very far from the shore. It was impossible for them to swim to the shore. "Captain Wu, what should we do now?" The first mate looked at Captain Wu for help. At this moment, Captain Wu looked at the beast, and a hint of confusion appeared in his eyes. "It's not moving." Captain Wu frowned. The first mate looked like he was about to cry. "When it moves, the entire ship will be finished." The first mate was panicking, and so were the passengers on the ship. They had also heard of the beast before. "I've heard of it. It said that when it appeared 2 years ago, all the ships within 100 kilometers were swallowed by it. Will we die today? What should we do? What should we do now?" Everyone was in a mess. Some people were even about to jump into the river and quickly swim to the opposite shore. Captain Wu's gaze fell on Jun Linyuan. If he really was the legendary crown prince, then there was nothing to be afraid of. He didn't dare talk to Jun Linyuan because the crown prince looked very unapproachable. Hence, Captain Wu went up to Feng Wu and asked respectfully, "Miss Feng Wu, did His Royal Highness do anything just now?" Chapter 3686, Fright 4. After some thought, Feng Wu nodded. That nod meant that she had admitted that he was Jun Linyuan. Captain Wu let out a shaky breath. Thank goodness. Fortunately, Jun Linyuan was here. Otherwise, everyone on the ship would be dead. Captain Wu said to his first mate, "That beast is already dead. Don't worry." Everyone turned to look in Feng Wu's direction. The inky flood dragon beast was dead. There were guards on the ship. At this moment, they had already dragged the beast back to the side of the ship. As expected, the head of the terrifying beast had caved in. It had died a long time ago. Everyone turned to look at Jun Linyuan again. Their crown prince was indeed an invincible man. But everyone only dared to watch from afar. No one dared to take a step closer. Their crown prince was intimidating and unapproachable. At this moment, the first mate exclaimed, "Wait! This inky flood dragon beast isn't the same one from back then." The first mate turned to look at Captain Wu, a grave expression appearing on his face. "That one we met back then had an obvious scar on its abdomen, but this one doesn't." Captain Wu was also shocked. If that was the case, then something big had happened. As expected, he carefully observed the abdomen of the beast, but he didn't see anything. "It's not there, right?" The first mate's expression was equally solemn. "This isn't the one from back then. Such a terrifying scar won't disappear." Qin Chi listened to their conversation. He couldn't help but frown and ask, "Why don't I understand what you're saying? What previous one? Could there be a second inky flood dragon beast?" The first mate smiled bitterly and said nothing. Captain Wu's expression was extremely solemn. He took a deep breath and said, "As everyone knows, the strength of the beast is extremely terrifying. Some people say that it's at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage. All along, everyone has tried to avoid it, and no one dares to provoke it. We were lucky to have His Royal Highness on board, so the beast didn't harm us, but if this beast is dead, the other one will definitely not let it go. It might not dare to find trouble with our ship, but along the way." Captain Wu exhaled. "But other merchant ships on the river will be in trouble." She frowned and grabbed Jun Linyuan. "Will Feng soon run into the other beast?" Jun Linyuan frowned a little. Feng Wu said, "He's just reached the spiritual overlord stage. If he runs into the inky flood dragon beast, he'll be doomed." The more she spoke, the more worried she became, and the more she blamed herself. Jun Linyuan rubbed her head, telling her to calm down. She bit her lower lip. "Of course I'm worried. Feng Sun is so frustrated that he must be looking for a place to vent his pent-up anger. He might have been the one who alerted that dead beast in front of us." All of a sudden, a violent sound came from not far away. Feng Wu turned around and saw a small boat less than 10 meters long being smashed into pieces. The children on the boat fell into the river one after another. Something huge moved fast in the river. It was probably the inky flood dragon beast. Those are children. Others might not be able to see it clearly from hundreds of meters away, but Feng Wu had excellent eyesight. She saw at a glance that it was a group of very young children who had fallen in the surging river. Chapter 3687, Unexpected Event 1. It was a group of very young children. They were hundreds of meters apart. On the other side, the wind was high and the waves were fast. It was as if 1,000 piles of snow had been swept up. The beast's furious roar made people tremble. "Hurry up and help them!" Feng Wu shouted at Captain Wu. Captain Wu nodded. However, before he could turn the ship around, a huge wave came. The soaring wing was swept up by the wave and fell heavily. The people on the ship couldn't stand still, and a few of them almost flew out of the ship. "Hold on. No one can save you if you're thrown overboard, so hold on tight." Everyone was shouting at the same time. Of course, she would be fine with Jun Linyuan around, but she was frustrated. Why didn't she have any cultivation ability now? She needed other people's protection, so forget about helping others. At this time, she saw an incomparably huge inky flood dragon beast open its bloody mouth and swallow the waves in front of it. There was those kids. I saw it. There were boys and girls. There were at least 10 of them. They were all swallowed by that beast. When everyone saw this scene with their own eyes, they were more shocked than when they heard the first mate's description. They didn't know how to describe their astonishment. Their faces were pale, and their eyes were filled with fear. People kept shouting at Captain Wu, "Set sail. Do you want to die? Hurry up and leave." Captain Wu turned to look at Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu shook her head at Captain Wu. "We can't leave. We have to save them." Everyone glared at her. Someone immediately said angrily, "Save my ass. Those children have already been eaten by the beast and are already dead. How can we save them? If we die, how can we help others? Miss Feng Wu, we don't want to die. Please let us live." When their lives were threatened, many people only cared about themselves. How could they care about saving others? Feng Wu turned around and looked at Jun Linyuan pleadingly. Jun Linyuan frowned a little. Neither Feng nor Feng Sun was around, so she didn't have anyone to protect her. Feng Wu pointed at Qin Chi. "He can protect me for now." He thought for a moment, then nodded. He gave Qin Chi a threatening look. Qin Chi's chest tightened. He didn't want to protect her at all. However, under Jun Linyuan's terrifying gaze, Qin Chi had no choice but to say, "All right." Jun Linyuan made his move. No one knew how Jun Linyuan did it, but the next moment, the inky flood dragon beast was punched in the stomach. The beast trembled violently and immediately spat out a mouthful of water like a rain of arrows. It happened to hit the deck of the ship. Thump, thump, thump. Those children rolled out of the beast's mouth and fell onto the deck. Meanwhile, Jun Linyuan was already fighting the beast. This beast was much more powerful than the previous one, so even Jun Linyuan couldn't take it down with one move. Moreover, they were on the river. It was the beast's territory. Jun Linyuan and the beast fought in the distance, while Feng Wu was trying to save the children on the deck. There were a total of 12 children, 6 boys and 6 girls. They were all around 5 or 6 years old. All of them were beautiful, but at this moment, they had all fainted. Although the ship had stabilized a little, many people were still holding on to what they could grab by their sides. They didn't dare to take a step forward, fearing that the huge wave would rise again. Chapter 3688, Unexpected Event 2. Feng Wu didn't have time to think about anything else. She rushed over to rescue the children. After these children were swallowed by the beast, they all fainted because of a lack of oxygen. If they weren't rescued in time, they would die very quickly. Feng Wu instructed Qin Chi, "Undress them. I'll do the acupuncture." Acupuncture. Although Qin Chi was confused, he followed Feng Wu's order and immediately began to make the preparations. The others gathered around and shook their heads when they saw this scene. These kids are dead. They can't be saved. Poor children. They were swallowed by the beast. How can we expect them to survive? She ignored them and stuck the silver needle into the acupoint in their chest. She did the same to all 12 children. However, nothing happened. Qin Chi tried to comfort her. "They're probably gone. Don't be too sad. After all, it's the inky flood dragon beast. Feng Wu didn't think so. These children were just unconscious for a while. If she stimulated the acupoint, they would wake up soon. However, before she could say anything, a black wind suddenly blew past. Before anyone could react, everyone fell back. Some people were swept into the river. Even the first mate was thrown overboard. Everyone rushed over to help those people. After finally fishing up the first mate, the 12 children woke up. After a moment of chaos, Qin Chi suddenly realized something. Where is Feng Wei? What? Only then did everyone realize a very serious problem. Where was she? This was Miss Feng Wu, Jun Linyuan's beloved girl. She was here just now. She was treating these children. Why did she disappear in the blink of an eye? Has she gone into the cabin? She's not there. There was a gust of black wind just now. Has she fallen into the river? I saw 3 people fall into the river. They're all out of the water now. Mississippi Feng Wu isn't among them. Then where did she go? Everyone was a little flustered. Qin Chi was dumbfounded. His mind was blank, and the only thing he could think of was, I'm dead. Where are the others? Who else is missing? The first mate hurriedly shouted, Report to me. After checking everyone on board, he realized. Everyone was there except for Feng Wu. Where is Miss Feng Wu? Everyone panicked. Qin Chi's legs went weak, and he fell to the ground. He was trembling in fear. Qin Chi? Young Master Qin? The first mate looked at Qin Chi for help. Qin Chi burst into tears. What should I do? If I lose Miss Feng Wu, His Royal Highness will kill me. The first mate comforted him. No, I'm sure that won't happen. The others also comforted him. You're not the one who lost Miss Feng Wu. You can't be blamed. Our crown prince is smart and reasonable. He won't take it out on you. Qin Chi didn't know what to say. Others might not know, but he knew that Feng Wu meant everything to Jun Linyuan. Just then, Jun Linyuan finally killed the beast and returned to the ship. His robe fluttered in the wind, and his face was cold and solemn. He looked around but didn't see Feng Wu. His sharp eyes stared at Qin Chi. Chapter 3689. Feng Wu is missing one. Under Jun Linyuan's cold gaze, Qin Chi's mind went blank again. Your royal, he couldn't even speak properly. Jun Linyuan's face darkened, and he asked, Where is she? He was undoubtedly referring to Feng Wu. Qin Chi said, She. Jun Linyuan looked even more furious. He extended his mental force and scanned the entire ship, but there was no trace of Feng Wu. That was a very big surprise. Qin Chi finally said it. There was a gust of wind, and Miss Feng Wu was gone. She was taken away by that wind. Everyone nodded, indicating that Feng Wu had really been blown away by the wind and had nothing to do with them. Just then someone walked out. It was none other than Tuberose herself. She was the most excited to see Feng Wu missing. The man was indeed very capable. He was able to take Feng Wu away in a moment like this. Your Royal Highness. Tuberose came in gracefully and bowed at Jun Linyuan. Her voice was soft and seductive. Miss Feng Wu doesn't want to stay with you. However, Jun Linyuan only stared at her. He recognized the person. Before Tuberose could finish, a bloody hole appeared between her eyebrows. The next second she exploded. Everyone watched as she was blown to pieces. They were all horrified. They all looked at the crown prince involuntarily. Only then did they realize how serious the matter was. The temperature kept dropping. The wind was chilly. It was freezing. Everyone shivered when they felt the cold air. It was such a terrifying power. They felt as if the end of the world was coming, and their hearts almost stopped. Jun Linyuan looked at Qin Chi. Qin Chi was dumbfounded. He pointed in a direction. The wind, the black wind, came from that direction, and when your Royal Highness wasn't looking, it took Miss Feng Wu away. It must have been prepared from the very beginning, Jun Linyuan closed his eyes and opened them again. It was such a terrifying look. His eyes were as cold as ice and were filled with a murderous intention. No one dared to meet his gaze. One look and they might be dead. Jun Linyuan glanced at Qin Chi, who was about to beg for mercy. When the crowd looked again, Jun Linyuan was nowhere to be seen. Phew! Everyone let out a breath of relief. I knew it. His Royal Highness is a magnanimous man. Since he knows that we have nothing to do with Miss Feng Wu's disappearance, he won't blame us for it. His Royal Highness is unmatched in his capability. His Royal Highness. However, Qin Chi had a bad feeling. No, the Crown Prince was never that magnanimous. He had heard Feng Sun describe how much the Crown Prince cared about Miss Feng Wu. He was practically protecting her with his life. Right at that moment, there was the sound of wood cracking. What's that sound? What's going on? Why does it feel like the ship is swaying? Is the beast not dead? Has it come back to life? That's not right. His Royal Highness has killed both beasts. Is there a third one? Why are there so many beasts in this river? Just then. Chapter 3690, Feng Wu is missing too. Just then, everyone realized that something was wrong. Because the wooden planks under their feet made a cracking sound. What's going on? This ship. Captain Wu paled as well. He was the first to react. The bottom of the ship is cracking. Abandon the ship. Abandon the ship. Jumping overboard. Captain Wu, what's wrong with the ship? Why did it crack all of a sudden? This isn't the time to ask. We need to remedy the situation. Captain Wu, what should we do now? Captain Wu's face was ghastly pale. He shook his head and said, If I could, I wouldn't have let you jump off the boat. You should swim northeast now. The water flow will help you. Maybe you can get ashore alive. But no matter how smooth the journey is, there's still 15 kilometers to go to the northeast. Everyone disagreed. Captain Wu smiled bitterly. What choice did he have? What's going on with this boat? Why is this happening all of a sudden? Why? Qin Chi gave them a strange look. Haven't you figured it out? His Royal Highness is venting his anger on us. Qin Chi looked desperate. That's impossible. Why would His Royal Highness blame us for Miss Feng Wu's disappearance? That's impossible. Qin Chi smiled bitterly. Feng Sun said that His Royal Highness would lose his mind if anything happened to Miss Feng Wu. His Royal Highness is only venting his anger now. If we can't find Miss Feng Wu, Qin Chi looked like he was going to cry. Even if they made it to the bank alive, they would all be killed. No one believed him at first, but when they saw Qin Chi's pale face, then they remembered two bros who had been blown to pieces. They all fell silent. Just then, Captain Wu took out a small boat. Everyone looked like they had lost their minds. They all tried to get into the boat. But the boat was so small that it could only fit 3 or 4 people. Captain Wu shook his head and wouldn't let the adults get in. Qin Chi realized what the captain wanted to do and said, The kids have all woken up. Miss Feng Wu has saved them. Maybe His Royal Highness will spare our lives for the sake of the children. That's why they can't die. No one is allowed to fight with these kids over this boat. What Qin Chi said was so frightening that no one dared to take the boat away from the children. We still have 2 dead beasts. Look, they're half floating on the surface of the river. We can circle around them and push them forward. That's right. That's a way out. Maybe we'll run into a life-saving boat. Everyone tried to save themselves. What Feng Wu didn't know was that because of her disappearance, Jun Linyuan was so angry that the soaring wing had shattered into pieces. Feng Wu, on the other hand, her head was spinning and she felt awful. It was bumpy and she was swaying back and forth. Feng Wu thought her head was going to explode. Yes, a hand seemed to have grabbed her and smacked her on the head, knocking her out. But now, she woke up again. Where was she now? Where was Jun Linyuan? Feng Wu rubbed her eyes and looked around. It was so dark that she couldn't see anything. Moreover, She seemed to be suspended in midair as she kept moving forward. Feng Wu did so calculation in her head and realized how fast he was moving. Chapter 3691. Where's Feng Wu? Feng Wu did some calculation in her head and realized how fast he was moving. She felt as if she could travel 5 kilometers in a second. Where was she? Feng Wu realized that she had been stuffed into a sack and was being carried around like a piece of cargo. Feng Wu closed her eyes and tried to recall what happened before she lost consciousness. She was trying to save the kids when she felt a gust of wind. Before she knew it, a strong arm caught her. Before Feng Wu could call for help, someone knocked her out by hitting her on the back of her neck. Who was this person? Where was she? What was his purpose? Had Jun Linyuan found out? Questions kept popping into Feng Wu's head, but she couldn't utter a word, for she had been rendered mute for the time being. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The mute acupoint wouldn't have been able to do anything to her under normal circumstances. However, Feng Wu didn't have any cultivation ability at the moment, so she couldn't do anything about it. She couldn't let her kidnapper keep running like this. Feng Wu thought, this person is running too fast. At this speed, I'll be out of the Junwo Empire in a few days, and it'll be very difficult for Jun Linyuan to find me. Feng Wu tried to summon Little Phoenix and the cub. To her disappointment, the 2 spiritual pets seemed to have disappeared without making a sound. No, to be more precise, Feng Wu's spiritual essence had been sealed, and she couldn't open the mental space at all. She had lost contact with her spiritual pets. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Right now, she had no one else to turn to but herself. No, she had to make this person stop. Feng Wu struggled with all her strength. The man carrying Feng Wu frowned. He wanted to ignore her, but Feng Wu kept scratching him. Did she need to pee? At the thought of the smell of urine, the man stopped. He spotted a dilapidated temple a short distance away, so he carried Feng Wu toward it with the sack over his shoulder. After they entered the temple, the man tossed Feng Wu on the ground, untied the rope around the bag, and found a clean corner to sit down. Feng Wu rolled out of the sack with much difficulty. Right now, Feng Wu felt so stiff that she could barely feel her legs. While she was waiting for her legs to recover, Feng Wu looked around. It was a dilapidated mountain temple. At the center of the hall was a broken Maitreya Buddha statue. One of its ears had fallen off, and the temple had been in disrepair for so long that there were gaps in the roof. If it rained, the temple would probably get very wet. Soon, Feng Wu saw a man in a black robe. He sat there with his legs crossed and his eyes closed. Half of his face was hidden in the shadows. Who was that? Was he the one who had brought her here? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes, and her face darkened. Just then, the man opened his eyes and stared at Feng Wu. It was a pair of eyes that reminded one of a frozen lake, and one would shudder at the sight of them. Other people might be frightened, but Feng Wu remained unperturbed when she looked into his eyes, but she was on guard now. The man had no intention of talking to Feng Wu. He only said indifferently, "We're leaving in 5 minutes." He closed his eyes after that and didn't say another word. Chapter 3692. Where's Feng Wu? 2. Feng Wu wanted to say something but realized that she couldn't utter a word. But she wasn't discouraged. She slowly walked up to the man. Feng Wu pointed at her throat and hummed. The man glanced at her but didn't say anything. He went back to his cultivation. Feng Wu stubbornly stood in front of him and pointed at her throat, making protesting sounds. She couldn't speak, and that was a big problem. She had to remove the restriction. The man glared at Feng Wu impatiently. Right now, Feng Wu was as stubborn as a lamb. The man felt a headache coming on. If he let this little mute make all the noises, he wouldn't be able to cultivate. They were high up in the mountains and there was no one around, so he wasn't afraid of her shouting. Staring at Feng Wu, the man warned her in the end. If you do something out of line, I won't just take away your voice. Feng Wu nodded immediately. The man asked, "Do you know what's considered out of the line?" Feng Wu nodded again. The man was defeated and let Feng Wu have her voice again. Who are you? Feng Wu's husky voice almost frightened herself. The man gave Feng Wu a strange look. Feng Wu cleared her throat. After clearing her throat, Feng Wu asked, Who are you and why did you take me away? What's your purpose? The man stared at Feng Wu with a frown as if he was thinking about something. Feng Wu immediately took a few steps back and asked the man, Is that too much? The man stared at Feng Wu. Although he didn't say anything, it was obvious what he meant. What else could it be? Feng Wu took another step back. Alright, I won't ask. That'll do. I need to relieve myself. Don't come with me. Feng Wu warned the man. The man looked up at the sky and waved at Feng Wu. Picking up the lower hem of her dress, Feng Wu ran out of the temple. After leaving the temple, Feng Wu stood halfway up the mountain and looked into the distance. One look and she lost all hope. Right now, they were halfway up a high mountain. Beneath them was a deep cliff with heavy mist. In the distance, she could see the endless jungle. Feng Wu had no idea where she was. She found a bush and crouched down, pretending to be in the toilet. Resting her chin on her hands, she racked her brain for a way out. It was actually very difficult. Although Feng Wu could walk and jog now, her cultivation level was sealed, and she couldn't activate any spiritual essence. Even the mental space was blocked, and she couldn't communicate with the two spiritual pets. Feng Wu was all by herself now. Jun Linyuan had to be looking for her like a madman. She had to find a way to let him know that she had been taken away by that man. Feng Wu rested her chin on her hands, and her eyes lit up. Just then, footsteps came from a short distance away. Apart from Feng Wu, that man was the only one here, so it had to be him. As expected, the man stood a short distance away and stared in Feng Wu's direction. Let's go. Feng Wu said, All right, I'll be right there. In the end, Feng Wu feigned an angry tone. Go away. Don't you know how shy a girl can be? The man looked up at the sky again. He wanted to shut her up. Before long, Feng Wu came back. He stared at Feng Wu's hand. Her hands were wet and covered with green liquid. The man was vigilant by nature, so when he saw Feng Wu. Chapter 3693, Pursuit. The black-robed man was a vigilant person, so he frowned when he saw the green juice on Feng Wu's hand. Clean yourself up. He stared at Feng Wu with a fierce look in his eyes. Feng Wu said reluctantly, I'm just trying to get rid of the smell. The black-robed man glared at Feng Wu. Seeing that he was about to make a move, Feng Wu said in a hurry, All right, I'll wash it. I'll wash it, all right? After that, Feng Wu walked to the stream and washed her hands carefully. The man looked at the sack and gestured for Feng Wu to go in by herself. This was simply a great humiliation. Feng Wu didn't want to be carried in a sack again. I can walk. Why don't you let me walk by myself? Feng Wu protested. However, the man didn't give her a chance to retort. He took a step forward, picked Feng Wu up, and tossed her into the sack like a chicken. Feng Wu grabbed his clothes and tried to struggle, but the man only waved his hand. With a thud, Feng Wu fell to the ground and couldn't get up again. Before she could say anything, the man had already pulled up the sack, slung Feng Wu over his back, and strode away. Feng Wu wanted to say something, but then she realized that the man would seal her acupoints if she started talking. So, she shut her mouth and didn't dare to move. Sitting cross-legged in the sack, Feng Wu pricked up her ears and listened carefully. She noticed the terrain around her when she went out, and although the man could cover hundreds of meters with a single step, she could still tell that they were walking on a ridge. And all the way up. Feng Wu had a hunch, so she kept her ears open. Sure enough, after the man climbed over the mountain ridge, he quickly descended the mountain from the other side. Feng Wu was already certain that they were heading north. Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan had been heading northwest, but the black-robed man was heading northeast. They were on completely opposite sides, and it would be hard for Jun Linyuan to catch up. The black-robed man walked all the way through the uninhabited mountains, But there were also cities that he had no choice but to walk through. Right now, he had no choice but to enter the city. Finally, there were other people around. Feng Wu heaved a sigh of relief and prayed at the same time. She hoped that her little tricks would work. Feng Wu's trick was simple. Previously, when she pretended to pee, she tore a piece of cloth from the inside of her shirt and wrote a line of words on it. Of course, the green juice on her hand was only to distract that man. As expected, the black-robed man no longer suspected her. This line of words was now stuck on the black-robed man's back. What did she write? Naturally, she wrote the most shocking thing she could think of. In this world, there were only 3 things that caused a stir and were widely discussed: scandal, scandal, and scandal. If there was something that was more shocking, it was the scandal of celebrities. So, in order to spread the word, Feng Wu wrote, Jun Linyuan. No one in the Zhenwu Empire was more talked about than Jun Linyuan. Besides, Feng Wu wasn't writing about Jun Linyuan's scandal, but his gossip. Jun Linyuan is getting married. Is Feng Wu the bride? Was Feng Wu the bride? This matter would definitely cause widespread discussion. Feng Wu was hoping that Jun Linyuan would come after her as soon as he heard the news because it would be almost impossible for her to escape by herself. As a matter of fact, Feng Wu's trick worked. The black-robed man would have to pass by a city sooner or later. Chapter 3694. Passing by the city. The black-robed man would eventually enter the city. Someone would definitely see him. That was indeed the case. After running for a long time, the man finally couldn't take the hard life in the wilderness anymore and carried Feng Wu into the city. After entering the city, he noticed that the gazes of the surrounding people were a little strange. They all stared at him. The man frowned slightly. Was there something wrong with him? Not only was he dressed in a black robe, but he was also carrying a large sack. At that thought, he found a secluded spot, threw down the sack, and asked Feng Wu to climb out. You want to come out? He looked down at Feng Wu. Naturally, Feng Wu figured it out. Stuffed in the sack, Feng Wu couldn't do anything to save herself. The only way was to stick a strip of cloth on the sack. Feng Wu climbed out of the sack and put away the cloth without a word. The man didn't even notice. Feng Wu looked up at the man and nodded. The black-robed man said, If you dare to do anything overboard, you'll die. After that, the man handed a pill to Feng Wu. Feng Wu frowned. What's that? The man said, 3-day soul-devouring pill. Feng Wu was speechless. She had heard of this pill before. Not only had she heard of it, but to put it bluntly, she was the one who created this pill. Feng Wu looked up at the man. The black-robed man sneered. You do know medicine, but you're only a supreme-level apothecary. You can't find an antidote, so stop trying. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She really had an antidote. The man ordered, Swallow it. Without hesitation, Feng Wu took the pill and swallowed it. Seeing how cooperative Feng Wu was, the man nodded. He took out a set of men's clothes for Feng Wu and changed her appearance. Her face was smeared with dirt, and she looked like a little beggar. Let's go. The black-robed man led the way. He wasn't worried that Feng Wu would escape at all. Feng Wu didn't have any cultivation ability, and she had taken the poison pill. Right now, Feng Wu was like a fish on a chopping board, at his mercy. The man had changed into an ordinary person's outfit. His face wasn't covered by a black scarf, but Feng Wu could tell that he was wearing a human skin mask. After some observation, Feng Wu realized that his human skin mask wasn't as good as hers. It was only half as good. Still, it was enough for people to not recognize him. The man stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu took a step back. What do you want? The black-robed man thought for a moment and sneered. No matter how you hide your face, you can't hide your natural beauty. Forget it, put on a human skin mask. As he spoke, he pulled out a human skin mask and put it on Feng Wu's face. Before that, Feng Wu was a little beggar with a dirty face but good-looking features. However, now that the black-robed man had covered her face up, Feng Wu looked like an ugly beggar with a flat nose, small eyes, and a big mouth. Feng Wu glanced at her face from the pool by the side of the road. One look was enough to make her depressed. "Isn't this too ugly? I don't like it," she protested. However, the man was very pleased with his work. He nodded and said to Feng Wu, "Let's go." As he spoke, the black-robed man swaggered away. Feng Wu had no other choice at the moment, so she could only. Chapter 3695. Away for too long. Feng Wu had no other choice but to follow him. The black-robed man walked into the bustling area. What he didn't know was that Feng Wu still had a stripe of cloth on her. Feng Wu thought to herself, "Hurry up and spread the word. Once Jun Linyuan heard about it, she would be saved." Many people were staring at Feng Wu's cloth, but she didn't know if it would work. They arrived at a restaurant called the Nameless Residence. The black-robed man might feel that he had run quite far away, so he let down his guard and sat by the window. Feng Wu sat opposite him. When the man wasn't looking, Feng Wu left a mark on the railing. Those were the two ugly ducks that Feng Wu had embroidered for Jun Linyuan. She knew Jun Linyuan would recognize them right away. Feng Wu didn't dare to leave too big a mark because the black-robed man was still very wary of her. She would be in trouble if he found out. "Help yourself." Feng Wu didn't feel like a prisoner at all. Instead, she acted like a hospitable host and kept asking the man to eat. The man looked at Feng Wu in amazement. He specialized in kidnapping. Over the years, he had kidnapped quite a number of people, but every person he kidnapped ran for their lives and wouldn't eat anything. The girl was different. She kept drinking, eating, and almost singing loudly. The man in the black robe glared at Feng Wu and reprimanded her. "Be quiet." Feng Wu nodded and sat down in silence. Feng Wu's plan was simple, but it would work. She had to create as many accidents as possible to impress the people around her. That way, it would be easier for Jun Linyuan to find her later. Feng Wu didn't dare to do anything else after being reprimanded by the black-robed man. She couldn't push too far or provoke his sensitive nerves. Feng Wu sat there and ate the porridge in silence. However, her big intelligent eyes were rolling around. She had been silently looking for an opportunity to create an accident so that she would be remembered. Behind Feng Wu sat a group of pugilists. They were brawny and strong-looking. "Hey, have you heard? The Peace Grassland is at war." "I know more than that. I heard that the Junmo Empire has its own fighter jet." I know. I heard that Feng Wu was the one who invented the fighter jet." "Which Feng Wu?" "The Crown Prince's little Feng Wu." "You don't even know that?" Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Had she been out of touch with the real world for too long, or were people much more open-minded now? What did they mean by the Crown Prince's little Feng Wu? Weren't they afraid of being beaten to death by Jun Linyuan's female fans? Indeed, once this fighter jet appears, the situation on the Peace Grassland will no longer be the same as before. Previously, we were always at a disadvantage and were losing miserably. Now we can fight to a draw in the sky. I knew it. This little Feng Wu is amazing. I won't accept anyone else as the Crown Prince's wife apart from her. Feng Wu rubbed her own forehead. She really hadn't expected that everyone's attitude toward her had changed so much that they were looking forward to her getting together with Jun Linyuan. Therefore, the information on the cloth that she had used previously wouldn't cause much of a stir. It seemed like she had to change the gossip. Chapter 3696. Sakia Ellis Words. Feng Wu glanced up at the black-robed man as she thought about it. Her heart skipped a beat. The man obviously didn't seem happy. She was sure that the man's face had darkened because he had heard what those people said. He wouldn't be so mad about what had happened between her and Jun Linyuan. So, the only explanation was the fighter jets. Therefore, Feng Wu was 80% sure that the man was from the Dongsang Kingdom. It made sense. He was able to steal her away under Jun Linyuan's watch and get away for a few days. He had to be very capable. However, Feng Wu hadn't figured out how capable the man was yet. Just then, a waiter came in with some hot fish soup. Feng Wu didn't order the fish soup because she liked it but because it was hot. She needed to use it. Feng Wu apologized inwardly. The next second, she stuck her foot out and tripped the waiter. The waiter threw the big bowl of hot water at the man's face. The man reacted quickly and struck out with his palm before the soup could touch his face. He didn't throw the soup at Feng Wu because he would be the one in trouble if she was injured. Therefore, he had no choice but to throw the soup at the people on the other side. Those martial arts practitioners were still chatting happily when something unexpected happened. Caught off guard, the soup splashed all over them, making them jump around in pain. They all turned to stare at Feng Wu's table. The waiter, who had brought the fish soup, was dumbfounded. Feng Wu stepped out and blocked the waiter's way. She then turned to those men and apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry. It was all my fault. I didn't get my leg back and tripped him. That's why this happened. But my master was so protective of me that he splashed the fish soup on your face. Please don't blame him. It's not his fault? Should we blame you then?" People in the martial arts circle were very tough to handle because they were all short-tempered. Blood rushed to their heads and they drew out their swords. After that, the leader bumped into Feng Wu. No one knew how much force he exerted, but Feng Wu flew away before he could touch her. The leader didn't care because the man in the black robe was his target. Of course, he was no longer wearing a black robe. Instead, he was dressed like a native of the Junwu Empire. But he couldn't do anything because if he fought, the special spiritual essence of the Dongsang Kingdom would be detected. The Junwu Empire and the Dongsang Kingdom were fighting in the Peace Grassland. If they found a mysterious Dongsang man in the Junwu Empire, the latter would be in a lot of trouble. As expected, the man was staring at Feng Wu so hard that he could dig a hole in her skin. He regretted letting Feng Wu out. According to the intel, Feng Wu was cunning and full of tricks. Even if they caught her, they couldn't let their guard down. They had to lock her up. That was what Mr. Sakya said. Frustrated that he had been tricked by the girl's pitiful look, the man made up his mind. Once this was over, he would do as Mr. Sakya said and tie the girl up. But Chapter 3697, A Man of the Dongsang Kingdom. However, things turned south before he could carry out his plan. The 5 men were capable cultivators as well, so they wouldn't let it drop after they were splashed with hot soup. Therefore, they went up to the man. The previous black-robed man was now wearing a disguise and looked like an honest old man. He seemed to be an easy target. Feng Wu tried to stir things up and shouted, "Don't go near him. I mean it. Don't go. You'll get beaten up. He's so capable." It would have been fine if Feng Wu hadn't said that. However, those words were enough to embarrass all the other cultivators. The leader patted the man on the shoulder. "Old man, I heard you were very capable. Come hit me. I'd like to see how capable you are." The others chimed in. "Bring it on. Hit my brother. We'll see how good you are." "Ha." Another man said, "We only wiped out an entire family yesterday. Aren't you afraid?" The man took a deep breath and told himself not to be provoked. However, those cultivators were simply too infuriating. Seeing that the old man wouldn't answer, they became even more relentless. Grabbing Feng Wu, the man frowned and turned to leave. The leader's eyes lit up when he saw Feng Wu's fair wrist. "Hey guys, look at that wrist. It doesn't look right. How can a beggar have such fair skin? Gosh, is she a girl? But she's so ugly. Hey buddy, don't be ridiculous. Don't you know that there's a medical skill known as disguise? What if the girl is wearing a disguise?" The leader stopped the man right away and asked Feng Wu, "Little beggar, is he really your master?" Feng Wu. She had started the conflict on purpose, and she wanted to make as much trouble as possible. Hence, Feng Wu put on her best performance. She sounded a little nervous and made sure the others could recognize a teenage girl's voice. The leader melted at the sound and couldn't care less about anything else. With that soft skin and that tiny voice. Needless to say, the person under that beggar's costume was definitely a beauty. Seeing that things were getting out of hand, the man wanted to leave with Feng Wu. But the leader wouldn't let her. "You human trafficker! Put the girl down." The leader was greedy and tried to grab the man. To be able to wipe out an entire clan so easily, these so-called martial arts practitioners were anything but chivalrous. The man was so frustrated that he couldn't control himself anymore. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched the leader in the chest. There was a loud thump. The man flew backward and smashed into countless tables and chairs. However, he couldn't stop himself and quickly slid backward. When he finally stopped, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. "Brother!" Quite a few men ran toward their brother. Their brother was still breathing and he pointed at the man. The spiritual essence of the Dongsang kingdom. As soon as he said that, he fainted. What? Everyone was astonished. Chapter 3698, News on Miss Feng Wu. Everyone was astonished. A man of the Dongsang kingdom. That lousy old man. By then the old man had dragged Feng Wu away. "Stop! He's a Dongsang spy. Stop them." Because of the war, everyone was very patriotic. They were excited to see a Dongsang man sneaking around. "Wait, there's a piece of cloth here. What does it say?" Just then, someone noticed a bundle of white cloth on the table and unfolded it. It read, "Feng Wu is being held hostage. A second-generation fighter jet has been stolen by the Dongsang kingdom." Everyone was shocked when they saw the cloth. What? Feng Wu was kidnapped. That was to say, that little beggar. Have you noticed? That little beggar's hands are so fair and tender. They belong to a girl. So, she's the legendary Feng Wu, His Royal Highness's Feng Wu. Everyone was shocked by the news. It was too big a piece of news for anyone to handle. Soon, the cloth was in the restaurant owner's hand. The owner didn't dare to delay and immediately delivered the news to the Dilo 110 the mayor's residence. The city they were in was called U City. The mayor of U City was holding a sea-arrest warrant from the imperial court. The person wanted was none other than the black-robed man, and Feng Wu herself was missing. Feng Wu's disappearance couldn't be kept a secret. Now that Emperor Wu had heard about it, so did many other important figures. Important documents of the empire could be delivered through special channels without any manual labor. Therefore, it was very efficient. Looking at the decree in his hand, the mayor shook his head and said to his assistant, "Why did we receive this? They disappeared around Yong City. It has nothing to do with our city." The others all agreed. They only read the decree for a moment before putting it aside. Speaking of which, is Miss Feng Wu really His Royal Highness's fiancée? It was Master Tang, Mayor Yu's deputy. Mayor Yu nodded. "I think so. Otherwise, His Majesty wouldn't have activated a special channel to send the warrant to the entire Junwo Empire. It would cost more than a few spiritual stones." Master Tang shook his head. "What a pity. If that kidnapper passes by U City, we can use this opportunity to make a contribution. My lord, you may be able to get what you want." Mayor Yu smiled bitterly. "Although it's a good thing for the empire and the people, it'll cost too much. I'm afraid I won't be able to get what I want." Sir Tang smiled bitterly as well. "His Majesty might grant our wishes if we save her, judging by how much he cares about Miss Feng Wu. Miss Feng Wu has always been a very capable fighter. She's the one who has developed all the fighter jets of the Junwo Empire." Mayor Yu was still smiling wryly when someone hurried into the room. It was Mayor Yu's chief steward. "Sir Mr. Yun of Yunlai In said he needed an audience." Mayor Yu frowned. He had never interacted with these merchants, so why did the owner of Yunlai In want to see him? "Just say that I'm busy." Before Mayor Yu could finish, he heard a hubbub of voices outside. Many people were talking. "Don't stop me. I have information on Miss Feng Wu. This is a great opportunity. Let me in." Chapter 3699. They're coming. "Don't stop me. I have information on Miss Feng Wu. This is a great opportunity. Let me in. Noisy voices kept coming from outside. The high-ranking officials of the city were in a meeting, so they all heard it. News on Miss Feng Wu. Is it about that Miss Feng Wu? The deputy mayor pointed at the decree they had put aside. Maveryu didn't think much of it at first, but he almost dead to his feet when he heard those words. The next second he was out the door. He wasn't the only one. With Mayor Yu gone, the others couldn't sit still anymore. Hence, they all ran out of the room. Mayor Yu grabbed the owner of the restaurant, who was stopped outside. Mr. Yun, what did you say? Without another word, Mr. Yun handed a piece of cloth to Mayor Yu and said loudly, I know where Miss Feng Wu is. Yes, that Miss Feng Wu. Seeing the strip of cloth, Mayor Yu asked anxiously, What's going on? Tell me. By then, Mr. Yun had caught his breath. He briefly described what happened in his restaurant today and concluded by saying, there were quite a few people in the restaurant at the time, and they can all testify to that. The deputy mayor's eyes widened. Miss Feng Wu. They had been saying that it was impossible for Miss Feng Wu to show up in U City, but as it turned out, it was unbelievable. Are you sure it was Miss Feng Wu? Are you sure she was kidnapped by a Dongsang man? The series of questions rendered Mr. Yun speechless. Moreover, the deputy mayor was so agitated that he was pinching Mr. Yun's shoulders. That cleared Mr. Yun's head right away. Most of the time, commoners like them wouldn't ask for meritorious service, but to avoid making mistakes. If he gave them the wrong information. At that thought, Mr. Yun cringed a little. I can't be completely sure that she's Miss Feng Wu. Maybe I'm mistaken. Of course, we can't be completely sure when all we have is this piece of cloth. So, if I'm wrong, Mayor Yu threw a dirty look at the deputy mayor. The decree was delivered by the fastest method. A small merchant like Mr. Yun would never know such confidential information about the imperial court, nor would he know that Miss Feng Wu had really been taken. So, he was probably telling the truth. Where did they go? Mayor Yu cut to the chase. Mr. Yun said in a hurry, to the northeast. That Dongsang man offended a group of martial arts practitioners, and they've been chasing him. It should be easier to find him. Great. Mayor Yu was elated. He made the arrangement right away. He sent a group of people to chase the kidnapper while reporting the news to the imperial court. The lords of cities had the means to report to the imperial court as soon as possible, but because of the high cost of using this channel, they didn't use it that often. But this was a special situation. Therefore, Emperor Wu received the news in a few minutes. That special channel was equivalent to a portal to the Peace Grassland. Of course, these cities weren't qualified to build a portal to send people around, but the channel was good enough to deliver a small box. Chapter 3700, Pursuit 1. Therefore, Mayor Yu quickly reported the situation here. He also sent the cloth Feng Wu had left behind. The Empire wouldn't think much of it if there was only Mayor Yu's report, but that strip of cloth was a different story. Soon, it reached Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu didn't expect that the cloth would reach Jun Linyuan so soon. Right now, she was being carried away by the man. The man was obviously angry, so he was very rough. In the end, the man threw Feng Wu into a pool in a valley. Caught off guard, Feng Wu took a few gulps of water. She wished she could dive in and swim away. Unfortunately, she was in a pool and couldn't get anywhere. Wait. Feng Wu suddenly realized that although it was a pool, there seemed to be a hidden river at the bottom. She was thrilled. However, before she could get excited, a big hand reached into the pool, grabbed her by her hair and pulled her out. He then tossed her into the mud. Poor Feng Wu. She had been thrown into the mud and was covered in dirt. The man knew that he had sealed up Feng Wu's ability, so he didn't exert much strength. Otherwise, Feng Wu would have been dead by now. Even so, Feng Wu still hit her head on a rock and was bleeding. She glared at the man. Crouching down, the man met Feng Wu's gaze. There was a murderous look in his eyes, and he looked like he was going to lose his temper. Kiddo, You did it on purpose? It wasn't a question, but a statement. Feng Wu covered her forehead with a handful of mud. That way, she could stop the bleeding. She glanced at the man and said innocently, "What do you mean by that? You're abusing me for no reason. You're mistreating a hostage." The man snorted. Instead of replying to Feng Wu, he went on with what he had just said. "Do you think someone will come after you just because you make a noise here? Kiddo, you think too highly of yourself. It's just a little noise. Nothing will happen. So what if Jun Linyuan hears about it in the end? It'll be a long time before he gets here. As for the others, they'll only get themselves killed. Do you know what you're doing to them?" The man sneered at Feng Wu. "Do you really think you can keep such a petty trick from me?" Feng Wu wasn't scared, but she still looked as pitiful as ever. It was a very useful disguise. She gave him an aggrieved look. "I have no idea what you're talking about." She burst into tears as she spoke. The man almost choked. He had scolded her and even hit her, but the girl was crying. Was this girl really the evil Feng Wu that made many Dongsang Kingdom people tremble with fear? Was she really the girl that even Mr. Sakia was intimidated by? He wondered if he had caught the wrong person. The man looked at the poor girl crying in front of him and felt a headache coming on. However, he couldn't care less now that he had caught her. The man stared at Feng Wu. "Why are you crying? Your tears won't change anything." The man didn't know what to do. The Dongsang Kingdom had been doing fine, but the Sun Castle was suddenly destroyed, and Night Owl was still bedridden. Chapter 3701, Pursuit 2. According to Mr. Sakia, Feng Wu was the culprit. The man stared at Feng Wu and scolded her. "Stop crying." The girl was supposed to be someone who could give General Xue Jibei a hard time, so she had to be tough. As it turned out, the girl stopped crying as soon as the man threatened her. She stopped crying and looked at the man with teary eyes. She was such an innocent and pitiful girl. The man wondered if he had caught the wrong person again. "Are you really Feng Wu?" He stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu put on a long face. "Can I say that I'm not?" The man said, "Are you the culprit behind all the chaos in Sun Castle?" Feng Wu said, "Maybe not." The man threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. What was that supposed to mean? "Stop pretending. It has to be you." The man snorted. "To tell you the truth, capturing you is the unanimous decision of the Dongsang Kingdom. You won't get away." Feng Wu put on a long face. "Is everyone in the Dongsang Kingdom trying to catch me?" The man nodded. Feng Wu was confused. "But why?" The man said, "Because of something Mr. Sakia said." Feng Wu asked, "What did he say?" The man stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu asked curiously, "What did he say?" Feng Wu decided that she would talk to Mr. Sakia when she had the chance to meet him. She wouldn't let him set her up like this. The man stopped talking at that point. Rising to his feet, he looked at Feng Wu and said coldly, "I think this is as far as I can go." Feng Wu panicked at those words. What did he mean by that? That was to say, Feng Wu looked around and wondered if this pool was where she would be buried. Her imagination was running wild when she heard footsteps a short distance away. Soon, a person wearing a silver butterfly mask appeared behind the man. The two of them walked to the side and exchanged signals before they started talking in the Dongsang language. Feng Wu didn't know who it was, but she knew that if she stayed with the man, her life would be in danger. She had figured it out already. Sakia must have given that man 2 sets of instructions. It would be great if he could take her back alive, but if not, he would kill her right here and now. Feng Wu could sense how intimidated Sakia was. So, she couldn't stay here anymore. Feng Wu looked at the deep pool a few meters away. There was nothing she could do at first, but then she found the hidden river under the pool, which gave her a chance. Feng Wu rose to her feet when she saw the 2 people talking in the Dongsang language. So what if she had no spiritual essence? She could dive. She slowly slid into the pool without splashing any water. She didn't make a sound, so neither the man in black nor the silver-masked person noticed what was going on until he was about to hand Feng Wu to the silver-masked person when he realized something. Where was she? The two people looked at each other in bewilderment. They had used some very well-hidden spies to catch Feng Wu, but now, their target was gone. The silver-masked person stared at the black-robed man, who was dumbfounded. Chapter 3702, Recover Her Power, 1. The silver-masked person stared at the black-robed man, who was dumbfounded. Where is she? The silver-masked person stared at the man. The man was very powerful, but his voice was trembling when he spoke. She was just here. The silver-masked person quickly walked up to the pool and examined the ground. Soon, the person noticed something. She's in the pool. After that, the silver-masked man jumped into the pool. With a stern look on his face, the black-robed man rushed into the pool without another word. Feng Wu felt the cold water in the pool. But she had no other choice now. She had to run for as long as she could. Jun Linyuan would definitely come for her. She headed directly for the river at the bottom of the pool. She didn't know where it led to, but she decided to run first. Feng Wu almost fainted when she dove into the cold water. Luckily, she was a water element cultivator. Wait. Feng Wu realized that she began to feel the spiritual essence in her body. That was to say, she was gradually recovering. At that thought, Feng Wu felt that there was hope again. Feng Wu activated her spiritual essence as she swam in the underground river. She didn't have much spiritual essence at this point because she had only just recovered and was only at the spiritual master stage. Come on, Feng Wu said in her head. The river was so dark that one couldn't see their own fingers. Because of that, her hearing became much more acute. All of a sudden, Feng Wu heard a faint noise behind her. Soon there was another faint sound. Feng Wu frowned. Were those two people chasing her already? As expected, someone cried out a short distance away. There's a hidden river down there. They were even able to speak in the water, which wasn't something just anyone could do. Feng Wu was certain that Jun Linyuan was capable enough to do that. Were they both at Jun Linyuan's level? That thought frustrated Feng Wu. However, no matter how frustrated she was, her top priority now was to get away. It was obvious that the man wanted to kill her. Run, run, run. Just then, the black-robed man said, I think that girl is right ahead of us. The silver-masked person asked, Can you still sense her? The black-robed man nodded. I've marked her. I can sense her wherever she goes. After a pause, he went on. It was Mr. Sakiya's idea. He said that the girl was as slippery as a loach and could run away at any moment. He was right. She slipped away in no time. The silver-masked person said, We'll kill her when we catch her. The black-robed man said, That's what I thought. What they didn't know was that because of the echo, Feng Wu could hear everything they said. Feng Wu was several kilometers away from them. She was furious. They would kill her when they caught her. I'd like to see you catch me. Taking a deep breath, Feng Wu activated her spiritual essence again. When her spiritual essence was back, Feng Wu could open up her ring space again. She had some blood origin crystals with her, so she bit one without hesitation and let the dense spiritual essence rush into her dantian. Chapter 3703, Recover Her Power, 2. In a matter of seconds, Feng Wu had risen from a spiritual master to a spiritual grandmaster. But that wasn't enough. She could clearly feel the two men getting closer and closer. Had he put something on her? Feng Wu tried to sense it, and she was right. It was a streak of spiritual essence that the black-robed man had sealed in her meridians when she had no spiritual essence left. She wouldn't have been able to sense it if she hadn't recovered her spiritual essence, but now that she had, there was no way that this could fool her. Feng Wu saw a tortoise swimming casually in the river. An idea struck her, and she grabbed the old tortoise. The tortoise was over 5 kilograms in weight, and its black shell was hard and tough. Luckily, Feng Wu was a spiritual master now, so she was able to break the shell. Feng Wu extracted the black-robed man's spiritual essence and injected it into the old tortoise. The old tortoise cringed, fearing that Feng Wu would do something to it. Feng Wu saw a fork in the road ahead. The fork was much smaller than the main one and was only wide enough for one person to get through. Moreover, after some calculations, Feng Wu realized that she would soon be able to reach the shore through this fork. Should she go ashore? Feng Wu shook her head. She had more advantage in the water than on land. If they were on land, she wouldn't be able to run very far. Therefore, Feng Wu chose to keep swimming in the river and put the tortoise in the fork. Feng Wu patted the shell of the big tortoise. Let's go. It's best if you can lure both of them away from me. Although deep down, Feng Wu knew that it was impossible. Feng Wu would feel so lucky if one of them was lured away. After releasing the big tortoise, Feng Wu moved faster in the river. Maybe fate was on Feng Wu's side as well. In a matter of minutes, Feng Wu had risen from a spiritual grandmaster to a spiritual elder. But those two people were so powerful that a spiritual elder would do nothing to them. The water was flowing faster and faster. Feng Wu felt a tightness in her chest and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. But deep down, she was over the moon. Let the current move faster. Otherwise, they would soon catch up with her. Meanwhile, the two people had indeed reached the fork in the river. They saw the two paths in front of them. One was the main branch of the underground river, and the other one was the fork. They looked at each other with brooding looks in their eyes. If the girl really got away this time and the higher-ups blamed them, they would probably have to take their own lives. The black-robed man said decisively, "Let's split up." After that, he wanted to swim into the fork. The silver-masked person stared at him. "Can you sense her going that way?" The man said, "What?" He wished he hadn't shared that piece of information. The person with the silver butterfly mask said, "You go that way, then." The black-robed man asked, "Are you going to let me take all the credit?" The silver-masked man said, "I don't want any meritorious service, but I don't want to make mistakes." The black-robed man immediately took the hint. A useless girl with zero cultivation ability had slipped away right under their noses. If word got out, the two of them would be so humiliated that they would have to kill themselves even if Mr. Sakiya didn't punish them. "Alright, I'll kill her when I catch up with her. I won't take her back to the Dongsang Kingdom. It'll be a long journey. I'm sure she'll run away again." Chapter 3704, Desperate Situation, 1. The silver-masked person nodded and headed down the mainstream way. The black-robed man suggested, "How about you come with me? I can sense her. She's right ahead of us." The silver-masked person only said, "Just to be safe." The black-robed man agreed. Just to be on the safe side, they would split up so that nothing could go wrong. However, he was glad that he had thought it through. He could sense that he was getting closer and closer to Feng Wu. 500 m, 300 m, 10 m. The man's stomach lurched, and he looked pleased. "You're so good at running, aren't you? Why don't you move fast?" The man smirked inwardly as he took out a broadsword from behind his back. There was no time to waste. He would cut the girl into little pieces. However, wait, where was she? The man realized in amazement that the girl wasn't there. But he could sense her. Was that her ghost? The man's stomach lurched. However, he was a capable cultivator and didn't believe much in ghosts. In the end, he found a big turtle buried under the mud. The man didn't know what to say. The big turtle was just unlucky. Having been caught by Feng Wu once, it was so sacred that it hid in the mud, but the man dug it out again. Sensing the spiritual essence he had buried in Feng Wu in the turtle, the man was speechless. He frowned. That girl has found out about my spiritual essence. And she had removed it. That is to say, the girl has broken her confinement. Has she recovered her spiritual essence? The more he thought about it, the more convinced he was. What a cunning girl. How could she run away in a situation like this? However, the man smirked. Even if you're back to your peak state, You still won't be able to withstand a single strike from us. You're not going anywhere. The man abandoned the unlucky turtle and headed for the mainstream way. But he soon stopped. That didn't make sense. With the girl's intelligence, how could she have such a simple plan? Although there was only a big turtle here, maybe she had left it here on purpose so that he would go the other way. Maybe she was right ahead. Since his colleague was already on the other route, the black-robed man decided not to turn back. Instead, he kept moving forward. This time, the man was genuinely infuriated. Blue veins popped on his forehead, and he looked like he was going to explode. All he wanted was to catch Feng Wu. However, for the time being, he wouldn't be able to find Feng Wu anywhere nearby. The silver-masked person, on the other hand, followed Feng Wu down the main route. The undercurrent grew stronger, but it didn't stop the man. Instead, he picked up his speed. The distance between them grew shorter and shorter. They were kilometers apart at first, but now he was only a few hundreds of meters behind Feng Wu. That person is coming after us. Feng Wu heard a familiar voice in her head. It had to be Little Phoenix. Feng Wu was excited. You're awake. Little Phoenix was very anxious. That man is very capable. Although he's not a spiritual saint yet, he's definitely a peak spiritual overlord. Did you offend him? Feng Wu had lost contact with Little Phoenix before, so it knew nothing about what was going on. Chapter 3705, Desperate Situation, 2. Therefore, Feng Wu told Little Phoenix the problem she was facing. Little Phoenix said, "So, you're in a desperate situation." Feng Wu was speechless. The little bird was so calm. Just then, the silver-masked man closed in and sensed Feng Wu's presence. Keeping his unblinking gaze on Feng Wu, he picked up his speed again. Feng Wu had reached her limit. Right now, she was a spiritual lord again, and she wouldn't be able to move much faster even if she tried her best. Get up here. Little Phoenix appeared beneath Feng Wu. Feng Wu looked perplexed. Little Phoenix said solemnly, "He's catching up with us." As it spoke, Little Phoenix grew bigger. The palm-sized bird suddenly grew to a meter long. Feng Wu moved before without thinking. She landed on Little Phoenix's back and wrapped her arms around its neck. By then, the silver-masked man was only 100 meters away. Although the river was dark, they could still see each other. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder and saw the smirk on the man's face. It was the gloating smile of someone who was sure of victory. "Kiddo, where do you think you're going?" he yelled. The next second, Little Phoenix picked up its speed. Whoosh! Little Phoenix dashed off like a little motorboat. The silver-masked man looked surprised. He watched as Feng Wu flew away on an object. They were only loom apart before, and the man thought he could catch Feng Wu with a wave of his hand. But now, the distance between them had widened. 200 m, 300 m, 400 m. The silver-masked man wouldn't stand it. He picked up his speed as well. Feng Wu did some calculations and saw that they were running at the same speed. They remained 1,000 m away, and the distance didn't change for a while. Feng Wu was secretly relieved, but she was still nervous. Because to a top cultivator, the 1,000 m was nothing. If she was caught, she would really die. Feng Wu knew that she couldn't disturb Little Phoenix now. If it lost its speed, she would be caught right away. She touched Little Phoenix's forehead and was surprised when she felt the sticky sweat. Little Phoenix spoke first. "Don't worry. I can hold on for a little longer." Luckily, his speed isn't his forte. If we were anywhere but in this river, he would have caught up with us already. Feng Wu nodded. "That's right. He's very capable. Moreover, if it's like you said, he's at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, he'll be much more endurant than us. Therefore, he'll definitely win in the end." Little Phoenix nodded. 3 minutes, tops. That was to say, Little Phoenix would slow down in 3 minutes, and they would be caught. Feng Wu had 3 minutes to figure out a plan. Otherwise, there has to be a way. Feng Wu closed her eyes and was lost in her thoughts. Little Phoenix said, I'll know what to do if you can stall for 15 minutes. Feng Wu asked, "What's your plan?" Chapter 3706, Desperate Situation, 3. Little Phoenix said solemnly, "I know this underground river well. There's a way out, but it'll take me at least 15 minutes to get there." Feng Wu said, "All right. I'll think of something in the 12 minutes after you slow down." Feng Wu took a deep breath and gradually calmed down. It seemed that she would have to use poison. Feng Wu had stored quite a few bottles of poison in her ring space. She would make them whenever she had time, so that she could use them to set other people up in critical moments like this. Feng Wu couldn't open the space earlier because the man had sealed her spiritual essence, so there was nothing she could do. But now that she could open up the ring space, she could use all the bottles. Hence, while Little Phoenix was running as fast as it could, Feng Wu lay on its back and started throwing out poisons. She calculated the speed of the silver-masked man and threw out bottles. The transparent bottles would explode in a matter of seconds. Of course, the explosion couldn't hurt the man, but the potion that splashed out was poisonous. Soon, Feng Wu heard the crackling sound behind her. No matter how hard the man tried to dodge, he couldn't avoid the potion. Because the potion was right there in the water. The man had no choice but to slow down. As soon as he slowed down, Little Phoenix and Feng Wu quickly moved away from him, and they were soon 5 kilometers ahead. The silver-masked man smirked. He wasn't worried at all. The toxin wouldn't hurt him much and would soon be forced out of his body. It wouldn't affect his cultivation level much either. As time went by, the giant bird would grow tired and slow down. Therefore, he wasn't worried at all. "I'd like to see how many bottles you have and when you'll run out." The man smirked. As expected, there were no more bottles after a while. The man grinned. "I knew she wouldn't last much longer." Hence, the man picked up his speed and closed the distance between them again. 3 kilometers, 500 m. When they were loom apart again, Feng Wu started throwing out bottles again. She couldn't control the time of the explosion from afar, but she could do it from a few hundred meters away. Explode! Feng Wu threw out poisonous bottles one after another. The man with the butterfly mask was speechless. He already knew what kind of bottles they were, so he didn't think much of them and waved the water away. However, this time, the silver-masked man let his guard down, but he didn't notice the steel needles shooting out of one of the bottles after it exploded. Most of the needles were brushed away, but some still stuck into him. There was even a needle in his eye. The silver-masked man screamed. It was really painful. He choked on a mouthful of water. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just ordinary water, but it was poisonous. The man rose to the surface and spat the water out. By then, black water was coming out of his eyes. "It's poisonous." The man removed the tiny needle, his face contorted with rage. Chapter 3707, Desperate Situation, 4. The silver-masked man wasn't good at medicine. Therefore, after being poisoned, he could only use the most primitive method, which was to use spiritual essence to force out the poison. But this time, for some reason, the poison stuck to his eye sockets and couldn't be forced out. Moreover, it seemed to have a life of its own as it drilled into his brain. The man's face turned pale. It seemed that he could only. A ruthless expression appeared on his face. Without hesitation, he stabbed the finger of his right hand into the injured eye. The man screamed in pain. He dug out his eyeball. The poison was also brought out. It hurt. The worst thing wasn't the pain, but the loss of an eye. He used flames to stop the bleeding from his wound. The next moment he dove into the underground river again. Feng Wu was already dozens of kilometers away. She heaved a sigh of relief. Looks like he won't be able to catch up anytime soon. It'll give us some time to catch our breath. However, Little Phoenix was still frowning. It said solemnly, "That's a ruthless person. He'll catch up soon." Feng Wu said, "I still have some poison. He won't be able to catch up so easily. By the way, how are you?" The phoenix said, "I can still hold on." She stuffed a blood origin crystal into its mouth. Little Phoenix was delighted when it saw the crystal. It was indeed a good thing to replenish spiritual essence. Little Phoenix finished the crystal in a few bites. Feng Wu said, I took them from the Hua and Zhou families. There are only a dozen left. Feng Wu counted. There were 16 in total. Hence, she divided them into 2 portions, 8 for herself and 8 for Little Phoenix. The journey ahead was arduous, and no one knew if they could get away. Therefore, neither of them spoke after that. They only chewed on the blood origin crystals, trying to recover their spiritual essence as soon as possible. Soon, they reached a fork in the river. Feng Wu had a little more time now, so she began to set up a formation. She didn't have much time, so she made it very simple. All she needed to do was to get the silver-masked man lost. Let's go! Feng Wu spent a precious minute setting up the formation, hoping to confuse the man. Even if she couldn't fool him, she could at least buy them some time. Little Phoenix carried Feng Wu along the main waterway. Before long, the silver-masked man caught up with them. He frowned when he saw the 2 paths ahead of them. His right eye had been gouged out, and his left eye glinted in the darkness. Feng Wu. He gritted his teeth. Mr. Sakia was right. The first thing he had to do when he saw the girl was to cut her into pieces. He couldn't let her brain work. Her ability had been sealed, and she had run out of spiritual essence, but they still had to chase her in such a sorry state. This girl was unbelievable. The man looked away and stared at the 2 routes. Which one should he choose? After some thought, the man couldn't make up his mind, so he had to come out of the water again. He had a special way of communicating with the black-robed man, so he soon found the latter. Poor black-robed man. He swam for a long time without seeing any trace of Feng Wu, so he knew that he had made a mistake. Hence, he was on his way back. Chapter 3708, Escape 1. The black-robed man ran into the silver-masked man on his way back. He frowned when he saw the latter. You've lost her too? The man with the butterfly mask said, Come with me. The black-robed man frowned. Why should I go with you? You don't have her. The silver-masked man said, I know where she is. The black-robed man's eyes lit up. Where? The silver-masked man said, Just come with me. This time, the black-robed man didn't say another word. He followed the silver-masked man and swam very fast. Soon they reached the fork in the river. The black-robed man was frustrated. Why are there so many forks again? I can't believe it. The silver-masked man looked at him. She was right in front of me, and I almost caught her a few times, but she's so cunning. He said angrily, She slipped away from me every single time. The black-robed man agreed with him. I caught her a while ago, but she still managed to get away. I can believe it. He suddenly noticed the silver-masked man's eye. Your right eye? The silver-masked man felt so humiliated. He asked coldly, Which one do you want to choose? The black-robed man was still trying to figure out what was going on in his eye. Did that girl poison your right eye? The silver-masked man flew into a rage out of humiliation. Go back to your fork. After that, he turned around and swam toward the main waterway. The black-robed man knew that he was right. His friend had really been poisoned by the girl. Although you're not as capable as I am, you're still a capable cultivator. However, you remia ko kakna aguronaming ana were poisonia dwina. How humiliating! The silver-masked man was frustrated and didn't know what to say. He ignored the man and kept rushing forward. The black-robed man stopped him. Hey, wait. He frowned and said, I'm not going to take the wrong path this time. I think the girl is going to take the main waterway, so I'm going to choose that path. The silver-masked man stared at the black-robed man, displeased. The black-robed man said, Well, I lost that girl first, and I'm more responsible than you are. You should at least give me a chance to make up for it. When Mr. Sakia asks. The silver-masked man threw a dirty look at him and headed for the fork in the river. Since the black-robed man had finally gotten the chance, the man didn't say anything else. He only frowned and charged forward. He was a little faster than the silver-masked man, so it didn't take him long to sense someone up ahead. The man was elated. The chance of finding another living person in this river was very slim. It had to be that girl. At that thought, the man was elated. "You brat. Just wait and see. Once I catch you." The next second, little Phoenix sensed his presence as well. A chill ran down its spine, and it picked up its speed again. Feng Wu sensed it right away and asked, "Are they coming after us again?" Little Phoenix nodded. "This one is even faster than before." Feng Wu smiled bitterly. It seemed that the man in black had caught up with her. However, catching up with them wasn't that easy. Feng Wu grabbed a cuttlefish swimming next to her, injected it with a needle, and patted it on the head. "Go ahead." Chapter 3709, Escape 2. The cuttlefish was still trying to figure out what was going on when it ran into the man in black. The man didn't know what was going on. Seeing the half-meter-long cuttlefish blocking his way, he waved his hand. "Get lost." What he didn't know was that the cuttlefish was poisonous. It wasn't at first, but because of the injection Feng Wu gave it, it was covered with poison now. The cuttlefish exploded in front of the man. The man was at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage, so he couldn't have been injured by the explosion. However, he was so surprised that he opened his mouth and swallowed some water. Cough. The man coughed violently. He knew that he had swallowed some of the cuttlefish's ink, but he didn't think much of it. It was just some juice. However, his first reaction was to cover his eyes, so nothing happened to them. "You drat. You really are poisonous." The man was furious. "You'll regret this when I catch you." The incident slowed him down a little, but he was very angry, so he picked up his speed. Luckily, little Phoenix had swallowed the blood origin crystal, or it would have been drained by the acceleration. "We're almost there. The tomb hall is right ahead of us." Before Feng Wu could ask, little Phoenix told her. Feng Wu was confused. "What's that?" Little Phoenix said, "I'll tell you later. This hall can at least stall him for a while." After that, little Phoenix shouted, "Hold on." Feng Wu wrapped her arms around little Phoenix's neck. The next moment, little Phoenix jumped out of the water and landed on the bank. Looking up, Feng Wu saw a hall. The building was so tall that one couldn't see the top. The walls were so wide that one couldn't see the end of it. It was enormous. Standing in front of the hall, Feng Wu felt so tiny. "This is the biggest hall I've ever seen." Feng Wu stared at it. There was such a hall by the river. By then, little Phoenix had used its last strength to get Feng Wu out of the river. It was too weak to move, and its meter-long body was shrinking rapidly. In the end, it shrunk to the size of a fist. Panting, little Phoenix told Feng Wu, "Quickly, hide in that hall. Maybe it'll save our lives." After that, little Phoenix fainted. Feng Wu knew that little Phoenix was exhausted, so she carefully picked it up and put it away in her ring space. She found the door little Phoenix showed her. There was a small hole in the side of the hall. Feng Wu was confused. Where did this hole come from? Why did it look like a dog's den? However, it wasn't easy to get in, for the opening was sealed. Luckily, Feng Wu had some corrosive potion with her, so she was able to quickly make a hole wide enough for her to go in. Feng Wu was only halfway in when the black-robed man jumped out of the river. He looked around and couldn't hide the excitement on his face. Is that the legendary Immortal Palace? It said that countless capable cultivators of the current generation have entered the hall. It said that Master Mujiojo, the only ruler of this continent, is buried there. Chapter 3710, Escape 3. Master Mujiojo is the master teacher's master. He was so excited that he was shaking from head to toe. Just then, he glanced around and spotted the little hole in Feng Wu's butt. "Feng Wu, where do you think you're going?" The man tried to grab Feng Wu's leg. But Feng Wu reacted quickly as well. In a moment of life and death, she had to be fast. Feng Wu quickly went through the hole, and the man missed his target. The man was furious. "You brat! Where do you think you can go?" He tried to crawl in through the hole. However, Feng Wu had calculated the opening beforehand. She had only corroded a space wide enough for her to get through. As for the man in black, he was too big to get in. The man wanted to break down the door, but it was made from some unknown material, and he couldn't break it no matter how hard he tried. Inside, Feng Wu made faces at him. The man was furious. Feng Wu ran away after making the face. She knew that the door wouldn't stop the man. He would come in eventually. Therefore, her top priority now was to get into the hall and run as fast as she could. It was a spacious square paved with white marble. Seeing the white jade brick of the same size, Feng Wu didn't rush toward the main hall. Instead, she carefully observed her surroundings. She was right. There was a trap. If she stepped on the wrong brick, she might trigger the hidden trap. At her current level, she would be killed in no time. Luckily, she was good at formations. Pressing her fingers together, she tried to deduce the formation in her head. It was the 9-layered maze formation. The formation would trap people here so that they wouldn't be able to leave the square. They would keep walking until they died of exhaustion. It wasn't easy to get out. After figuring out the right path, Feng Wu began to walk with her eyes closed. If one opened their eyes, they could easily make a mistake because the most impressive thing about this formation was that it could confuse one's eyes. Feng Wu covered her eyes with a black cloth, and it took her 15 minutes to walk from the square to the main hall. Feng Wu only let out a breath of relief when she stepped into the hall. By then, her forehead was covered with sweat. Wiping away the sweat on her forehead, Feng Wu heard some noise behind her. Turning around, she saw the black-robed man come in. The silver-masked man came in with him. She had no idea how the two men got in, but they were already there. They looked up to find Feng Wu standing outside the main hall, and their eyes went bloodshot red. They wanted to fly to Feng Wu's side right away. But reality surprised them. Because when they rushed in, they realized that they couldn't control where they were going. Feng Wu was less than 10 meters away from them, but they realized that they couldn't make it to her side. They kept walking and even ran as fast as they could, but they still couldn't get within 10 meters of her. Only then did Feng Wu let out a breath of relief and waved at them. "Stop! Stop right there!" Seeing that Feng Wu was leaving, the black-robed man shouted at her. Feng Wu smiled at them. "Don't worry about chasing me. Just stay here." "Stop right there." The black-robed man was furious. Chapter 37:11 Escape 4. She turned around and smiled at him. "If you keep running around like that, you'll trigger a trap." Maybe the black-robed man was unlucky because the moment she said that, he really triggered a trap. Whoosh! Immediately, black arrows shot toward him like meteors. Fortunately, the two men were very capable. They managed to withstand the wave of arrows and smash them down. Even so, they both had injuries afterward. Dark black blood flowed out of the wounds. It was obvious that arrows were poisonous. After the wave of arrows, they thought they could finally walk out of the formation, but that didn't happen. She waved her hand. "I won't tell you the way in, but I can tell you the way out. I'll let you live. Listen carefully." After reciting the incantation, she didn't care about the expressions of the two men. She waved at them and walked into the hall with the weakened phoenix in her arms. "Hey, stop right there. Stop right there." The black-robed man almost exploded. Mr. Sakia was right. She was such a cunning brat. As long as she was given a chance, she would be able to slip away, regardless of whether she had cultivation ability or not. In the end, the two men could only watch helplessly as Feng Wu entered the hall and disappeared. "What should we do?" The black-robed man turned to glare at the silver-masked man. The silver-masked man was obviously infuriated as well, and his chest was heaving. What should they do? He also wanted to know what to do. He stared at the black-robed man. "Have you sent back the news of catching this girl?" The black-robed man's face turned red. There was no need to say anything else. It was obvious that the black-robed man had already sent the news back. The black-robed man almost flew into a rage out of humiliation. At that time, she was my prisoner. She's just a little piece of trash without any spiritual energy. Isn't that almost certain? The silver-masked man said, it would have been fine if we didn't send the news back. Now that we did, we've also lost her. Will we be able to live if we go back? The black-robed man said, if we're going to die, why don't we catch that girl first? That way, we can atone for my crime. Plus, even if we're going to be punished, we can take that girl down with us. The silver-masked man said, let's find our way then. Neither of them knew much about formations, so they soon triggered the mechanism again, and a second wave of weapons flew out. They were simply too capable and managed to withstand the second wave of attack. But soon, there was a third, a fourth, and a fifth wave. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was quickly entering the hall with Little Phoenix. Why did you tell them the way out? Little Phoenix asked grumpily. Feng Wu looked around as she answered Little Phoenix. If they're unlucky enough to trigger another wave of hidden weapons, their morale will weaken in the end. Maybe they'll give up. Little Phoenix shook its head. You underestimate the Dongsang people. They won't give up. Feng Wu said, even if they don't, we've walked so far ahead of them. It won't be that easy for them to catch up with us. Chapter 37:12. The ginseng sown back then one. Little Phoenix nodded. That bird had a point. Things were much better than when they were in the river. Feng Wu raised an eyebrow. I'm afraid they'll be covered in wounds when they get out of the maze and catch up with us. Plus, I think those weapons are poisonous. Little Phoenix thought otherwise. The Dongsang Kingdom is much better than us in medical skills. I'm sure they have some medicine with them. It's not as optimistic as you think. Feng Wu agreed and felt a little disappointed. In the end, she said, at least we can stall for a while. That's good enough. By the way, there are so many paths. Which one should we take? 3 paths appeared in front of Feng Wu. The one on the left said life, the one in the middle said danger, and the one on the right said death. The 3 doors were white, red, and black respectively. The white and black doors seemed to be in disarray, and the red one in the middle was the only one that didn't seem dangerous. But Little Phoenix pointed at the door on the left. Feng Wu looked at Little Phoenix in bewilderment. Are you sure? Little Phoenix nodded. That's right. Just do as you're told. Feng Wu asked, are you familiar with handwriting? Little Phoenix chuckled. Of course, I know who did it right away. Feng Wu asked curiously, who? Little Phoenix only said, you'll know when the time is right. Quickly, let's go through that door. Feng Wu was still hesitating when she heard a faint noise behind them. Were the 2 men here already? Without thinking, Feng Wu pushed the door open and walked in. Behind the door was a black portal. Feng Wu stepped into it, and the next second she felt dizzy. 2 figures showed up as soon as Feng Wu stepped into the door. Feng Wu was right, they were indeed those 2 men. There are footprints on the ground. Pointing at the footprints, the man turned around and looked at the silver-masked man in pleasant surprise. The man with the silver mask crouched down and examined the footprints. They weren't big, and one could tell that they belonged to a girl. It's her, the man said affirmatively. The man gritted his teeth. I didn't know she could move so fast. It's only been a little while, and she's already here. Right now, the 2 of them didn't look too well. They had gone through a lot to get out of the maze. They used the dumbest method. They triggered all the traps and withstand the impact with their physical bodies. They were covered in wounds, but in the end they still got out of the maze. However, they still let Feng Wu slip away when they arrived at the scene. Her footprints are here. Pointing at the door, the black-robed man turned to the silver-masked man. She must have entered the door. The silver-masked man frowned. Are you sure? The black-robed man wasn't so sure anymore. The silver-masked man said, don't you know how cunning she is? Recalling how he had been tricked by that girl, the black-robed man was furious again. The silver-masked man said, with her intelligence, why would she leave footprints in front of the door for you? The black-robed man smacked his head. That made sense. He stared at his colleague. What do you think? Chapter 37:13. The ginseng sown back then, too. The silver-masked man rubbed his chin and was lost in his thoughts. The black-robed man prompted him. Tell me, which door do you choose? The silver-haired masked man said, the life door is a possibility. What if she's trying to set us up? What if she went through that door, but she's leaving a trail behind so that we'll think that she has taken another route? Although this door is marked with the word danger, it feels safer than the two doors on either side. Therefore, it's very likely that she went this way. The death door looks so creepy that no normal person would go in, but what if the girl thinks that we won't pick it and chose it on purpose? So, that's possible too. The black-robed man stared at his colleague. Which one should we choose then? The silver-masked man couldn't make up his mind either, and he was frowning. The black-robed man asked, Have you made up your mind? The silver-masked man shook his head. The black-robed man frowned. I don't think we should try to set her up. Even 100 people put together won't be able to do that, and she'll lead us astray. So, we should use the dumbest method. The silver-masked man asked, What's that? The black-robed man said, Let's leave it to fate, and we'll choose whichever one it tells us to choose. The silver-masked man asked, What if it's wrong? The black-robed man said, So be it. We'll choose another one after you come out. The silver-masked man thought about it and agreed. By leave it to fate, the black-robed man was referring to the lucky draw. One couldn't tell if he was lucky or not, but he picked out the note that said, Life. The silver-masked man said, If you choose life, I'll choose danger. If we don't find any trace of that girl, we'll go into the death door together. The black-robed man nodded. Let's do it. After that, they stepped into the door they had chosen. Feng Wu stepped on the black portal as soon as she entered the door. When she realized what had happened, she was in a snowfield. The wind was chilly. Feng Wu sneezed right away. It was freezing. Where am I? Feng Wu cringed. The wind was so cold that it felt like blades on her face. The pain was unbearable. Little Phoenix stuck its head out of Feng Wu's arms and looked around curiously. Wait, Little Phoenix looked suspicious. Feng Wu asked, What's wrong? Little Phoenix scratched its head. This isn't what I remember. I remember this place used to be like spring all year round. The weather was warm, the birds sang, and the flowers smelled nice. Why is it a snowfield now? Feng Wu stared at Little Phoenix. Are you sure you remembered it correctly? Maybe we should take the danger or death door instead. Little Phoenix hesitated. Could it be? The look on its face gave Feng Wu the creeps. Have we chosen the wrong door? Little Phoenix put on a long face. I can't say. I really don't remember anything. Feng Wu said, Weren't you so confident when you told me to go this way just then? Little Phoenix felt a pain in its chest. But after so many years, I don't even recognize this place anymore. Chapter 37:14. The ginseng sown back then, 3. However, there's no telling what changes might happen. Look for a way and see if you can find a cave. What kind of cave? Feng Wu asked. Little Phoenix said, That mountain is in the shape of a cross. It's very easy to recognize. Take a look. Feng Wu wasn't standing very high up yet, and she could see a steep mountain peak ahead of her. She stuffed Little Phoenix into her chest pocket and rubbed her hands. I'll go to the top and have a look. I can see further from there. Little Phoenix was concerned. Are you sure you can do it? Feng Wu said, I'm a spiritual lord now. This mountain won't be a problem for me. Little Phoenix felt a little guilty. If I can recover, I won't need you to climb up and down. If you can find the cave, I'm sure I can recover. Feng Wu didn't have much hope, but she still comforted Little Phoenix. Don't worry. I'll find that cave for you. Feng Wu started climbing with her bare hands. It was already very difficult to climb up this steep slope. To make it worse, it was covered with layers of ice. The snow seemed to have frozen over for thousands of years and was slippery. Luckily, Feng Wu wasn't just any ordinary girl. She had a dagger with her, and when she needed it, she could use it to climb up the mountain. She quickly climbed up the mountain that was thousands of meters high. Standing on a mountain peak, Feng Wu looked into the distance. They were in a snowfield and there was no cover, so Feng Wu could see very far. A cross-shaped mountain. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and looked around, but she didn't see anything on the first try. Little Phoenix was dumbfounded when it heard the news. "No? I can't believe it. What about all the ginseng I planted back then? Have they all gone missing?" Little Phoenix pressed a hand to its chest, feeling uneasy. By the look of it, it was worse than taking its life. Feng Wu looked at the bird in resignation. She had to admit that the bird was very good at hiding things. It had done it last time, and it had done it again this time. Her eyes lit up all of a sudden. "I see it. There's indeed a mountain in the shape of a cross to the northeast, but the protruding part has been eroded by the wind, and there's only AT left." That was why she didn't notice it at first glance. Little Phoenix was thrilled and told Feng Wu, "Quickly, let's go." Feng Wu knew that anything that could be hidden by the bird had to be good stuff, so she picked up Little Phoenix and ran in that direction. The mountain didn't seem very far in the snowfield, but one wouldn't know how far it was until they started running. It didn't seem to get any closer. When Feng Wu reached the mountain, it was 4 hours later. Little Phoenix said, "Climb. When you're 5,000 meters up, you'll see a protruding rock. I planted a tree there. See if it's still there." Feng Wu followed Little Phoenix's instructions and climbed up. She stopped when she was exactly 5,000 meters up the slope. The protruding rock was long gone, but the cave was still there. Little Phoenix's eyes lit up when it saw the cave. The next second, it jumped out of Feng Wu's arms and disappeared into the cave. "Slow down. Slow down." Feng Wu ran after the bird as well. The cave was pitch black at first, so dark that one couldn't see their own fingers. However, it didn't last long. Chapter 37:15, Opportunity 1. By Feng Wu's estimation, they had run into the belly of the mountain, and everything suddenly opened up. Wow! Even Feng Wu's eyes lit up when she saw this. They were in an open space in the middle of the mountain. Luminous pearls the size of bowls hung above their heads. Yes, they were indeed the size of bowls. Any one of them could feed a family of hundreds of people for more than a lifetime. How extravagant! Feng Wu also noticed that those hundreds of luminous pearls were arranged in a neat formation according to the stars in the sky. What surprised her the most wasn't the luminous pearls, but the ground beneath it. There were rows of ginseng in the ground. They had to be the legendary ginseng that Little Phoenix was talking about. There was one every 10 meters, and each one had 6 leaves. The leaves were full and dark green, and they were frighteningly big. Feng Wu often used this kind of snow ginseng when she refined medicine, and she used all the top-grade ingredients. However, she had never seen such a big one before. Little Phoenix was already there. It crouched down next to the first ginseng and pulled it out. The roots were almost 10 meters long. That ginseng was bigger than the biggest white radish Feng Wu had ever seen. It was white and juicy and weighed at least 5 kilograms. Feng Wu was astonished. The ginseng was indeed as amazing as Little Phoenix said. It was almost a spiritual creature. Little Phoenix bit down and tore through the ginseng skin. It buried its head in and began to suck. Feng Wu could hear the gurgling sound when the bird sucked on the ginseng. The ginseng was drained in no time. Little Phoenix didn't let anything go to waste. With a wave of its sharp claws, the ginseng turned into thin stripes. Little Phoenix stuffed the stripes into its mouth. It only took Little Phoenix a moment to finish the ginseng. Feng Wu was amazed. Little Phoenix was only the size of a fist. After swallowing the ginseng, which was 10 times bigger than it, it didn't feel any discomfort at all. Right now, it was going to start on a second one. Feng Wu sensed something in the ring space as if someone was pounding on the door. Looking down, she saw that it was the cub. Feng Wu could guess what the cub wanted, so she immediately released it from her ring space. After jumping out of the ring space, the cub was even more excited than Little Phoenix. It ran toward the ginseng right away. It did exactly the same thing as Little Phoenix. After pulling out the snow ginseng, it lowered its head and started sucking. Feng Wu was intrigued by that slurping sound. After eating the second one, Little Phoenix looked up and saw that Feng Wu was still standing there. It said, "Eat." Before Feng Wu could ask, Little Phoenix said, "I buried it back then. How many years has it been since then? It's very potent. It'll help you recover your cultivation ability." Feng Wu was a spiritual elder now. A spiritual elder could be considered a capable cultivator anywhere else, but Feng Wu was being chased by two peak spiritual overlords. So, a spiritual elder was nothing. Feng Wu wished that she could become a spiritual overlord again. She crouched down, copied Little Phoenix, and began to eat the snow ginseng. One sniff and Feng Wu's eyes lit up. It was indeed a rare treasure. Chapter 37:16, Opportunity 2. Feng Wu only had to take a breath before she felt the heat travel from her throat to her dantian. The blood origin crystal had already provided her dantian with a lot of pure and dense spiritual essence. Now that she had the ginseng, Feng Wu felt her dantian burning. "I'm a spiritual lord now." Feng Wu was amazed and told Little Phoenix right away. Little Phoenix nodded and went back to eating the ginseng. 1, 2, 3. It was an hour later when Little Phoenix finally looked up from eating the ginseng. By then, the cub had passed out from eating too much snowy ginseng. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Holding its plump belly, Little Phoenix burped. "Finally, I'm full." Feng Wu rolled her eyes. "You make it sound like I starve you all the time." Little Phoenix glanced at Feng Wu. "They're not as dense as my spiritual ginseng. I planted them myself." Throwing the sleeping cub back into the ring space, Feng Wu sat down opposite Little Phoenix and met its gaze. The look on her face suddenly became very serious. "What is this place? How could you grow that ginseng here before?" Little Phoenix said, "Do you want to hear the truth?" Feng Wu nodded. Little Phoenix said, "The rumors are only half true. Many people say that this place is the tomb of my master and your beautiful master, but in fact, this is only a fake tomb." Feng Wu frowned. "What's that about?" Little Phoenix burped, and its breath smelled like ginseng. It sounded a little drunk when it said, "Too many people in this world have been searching for Master Mu, and they all covet his cultivation technique or simply admire him. That's why when Master Mu went missing, the world was so chaotic that many people fought with each other. That's why Huyen built this place back then. He set up 3 doors, the life, the danger, and the death so that those people would get in." Feng Wu frowned. "You tricked them into coming here just like that?" Little Phoenix said, "Well, we didn't exactly trick them. They were so desperate to get in that no one could stop them. All the ancestors of the 4 forces and 9 families have been here before." Feng Wu asked, "Where are they now?" Little Phoenix shrugged. "You won't be able to get out once you get in." Feng Wu looked perplexed. Little Phoenix nodded. "That's right. Of course, we wouldn't let them go." Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Little Phoenix said, "Many masters were trapped in this place back then, and they were from all the major families. I wonder if any of them are still alive. If they are, they can help us defeat those 2 villains." Feng Wu asked, "Will they do as you say?" Little Phoenix smiled. "They came here for their cultivation, and no one stopped them from cultivating. If they're still alive, they must be very capable now. Come, let's have a look." Little Phoenix was in high spirits after its meal, so it took Feng Wu out with a wave of its wings. "Hey, don't tell them about our relationship with this tomb. Otherwise, those old men may be angry at us," Little Phoenix warned her. Feng Wu nodded immediately. She was amazed. She still hadn't digested the information. When they came out of the cave, Feng Wu smacked her forehead. "What about the ginseng? What if that black-robed man finds us?" Chapter 37:17, Opportunity 3. Little Phoenix realized the problem as well. How about we pull them all out? Feng Wu's eyes lit up. There's no need to remove them all. We can leave a few left. Little Phoenix was dumbfounded. However, judging by the look on Feng Wu's face, Little Phoenix knew that their pursuer was in trouble. As planned, Feng Wu removed most of the ginseng. They had eaten a lot of it already, so Feng Wu only had a dozen or so left in her storage ring, and there were only 2 more in the ground. As for these 2, Feng Wu had to do something to them. But she had reason to believe that the black-robed man would fall into her trap even if he found out. As expected, Feng Wu and Little Phoenix saw the man when they went out. Seeing the man's ragged clothes and bloody skin, Feng Wu smiled a little. Feng Wu was soon out of sight, and the man ran after her as fast as he could. Feng Wu, stop right there. The man was pleasantly surprised to see Feng Wu. He had searched high and low for her, but she just so happened to be there. He wouldn't rest until he caught the girl. But before he could catch up with Feng Wu, he saw the snow ginseng. The Dongsang Kingdom had snow ginseng as well, but the man had never seen one with such a dense spiritual essence. It's a great ingredient, the man drooled. But where was Feng Wu? She was out of sight in a split second. The man wanted to catch Feng Wu, but he also wanted the ginseng. He hesitated. Forget it. Feng Wu was in the snowfield, and she wouldn't be able to get away. He was badly injured and poisoned, so he had to use ginseng to treat his wounds. At that thought, the man tried to pull out the ginseng that was the closest to him. Wow! Soon he pulled the ginseng out. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the ginseng that was over 5 kilograms. That's so rare. If I can take it to the Dongsang Kingdom, I'll be promoted right away. Seeing that there were 2 of them, the man decided to eat one and take one back. He moved closer and sucked all the juice of the ginseng into his mouth. The taste. Why did it have a special fragrance? But the man didn't care. He thought that the nearly spiritual snow ginseng probably tasted like this. He tore the shriveled trunk of the ginseng into pieces, chewed on it, and swallowed it. He even washed the roots clean before swallowing them whole. He didn't want to leave anything behind. As for the other one, needless to say, he wouldn't let it stay in the ground. He took off his robe, dug out the ginseng, and carefully wrapped the robe around the 10-meter-long root before tying it to his back. These 2 ginseng alone would make the trip worthwhile. Feng Wu, where do you think you're going? After that, he turned his attention to Feng Wu again. You're bound to leave a mark on this vast snowfield. Do you think you can get away? The man smirked. The next second he set out. No one knew how he found his way, but he was right. It was indeed the way Feng Wu left. If Feng Wu were here, she would be very surprised. How did the man know that she was going this way? Chapter 37:18, Too Dangerous, 1. Little Phoenix knew this place like the back of its hand. Therefore, it led Feng Wu through the snowfield after it recovered its strength. Little Phoenix said, I remember clearly that many old masters used to live here. Feng Wu asked curiously, why are they living here? Little Phoenix said proudly, of course, it's because of the traces left behind by my master and some incomplete manuals. As a result, they all came here like flies smelling meat. Feng Wu asked, won't they leave after they come in? Little Phoenix gave Feng Wu a strange look. Leave? Feng Wu said, that's right. Won't they leave? Little Phoenix smiled again. To do that, they have to know how to leave. Seeing Feng Wu's confusion, Little Phoenix was even more pleased. Little Yanba and I built this place together. I was in charge of the drawings, and he took care of the construction. They can't just walk away from the place we built together. Little Yanba? He was the most capable man in northern Yen, but Little Phoenix had just called him Little Yanba. Soon they reached a mountain peak. The mountain peak wasn't very tall. It was round and plump, and the top of the mountain was bare. There was no greenery, and the ground was covered with white snow. Little Phoenix's eyes lit up. It's right here. Feng Wu didn't see any path. Little Phoenix told Feng Wu, "Climb. When you loom up the slope, you'll find a protruding stone with the pattern of a bird on it." Feng Wu nodded. She knew that Little Phoenix was a living navigator here, and she would do whatever it said. Just then, Feng Wu heard a gust of wind behind her. Feng Wu's pupils contracted when she turned around. The man in the black robe. WHV was he so fast? They were only a few kilometers apart. With the man's speed, he would catch up with them in no time. "Run!" Little Phoenix cried out, and its voice wasn't as calm as before. The difference between Feng Wu and her opponent was simply too great. Even at her peak, Feng Wu was only a level 3 spiritual overlord. However, the man was at the peak of the spiritual overlord stage and was very close to the spiritual saint stage. Of course, Feng Wu knew that her top priority was to run as fast as she could. She didn't know if she could get away. Following Little Phoenix's instructions, Feng Wu quickly reached the loom mark and began to search for a safe route. But she couldn't find it. Feng Wu circled around and searched for it, but she still couldn't find it. The man was closing in. Although he was injured and poisoned, he still looked terrifyingly powerful. Feng Wu didn't panic. Instead, she calmed down. 1000 m, 500 m, 300 m. The man was almost there. Frustrated, Little Phoenix ran around in circles on Feng Wu's head. "It's right here. It's within 100 meters. I made a mark on it. 110W, can it not be there?" Feng Wu smacked her head all of a sudden. "We're on ice, and it's very likely that the ground is way beneath us. That stone was loom above the ground before, but it may not be the case now." Feng Wu thought of that possibility, but it was too late. Because in a split second, the black-robed man was at the foot of the mountain. Looking up, he saw that Feng Wu was only 100 meters away. The man smirked and let out a breath of relief. Chapter 37:19. Too Dangerous, 2. The man smirked. After all the chasing, he finally caught up with her. However, he didn't let his guard down in the last loom. After all, he had been tricked by Feng Wu before. Therefore, he was on guard. Explode! He was about to charge out when Feng Wu threw something at him. The man was already alarmed, so he dodged to the side. Wait, why didn't it explode? The man turned around and saw the thing rolling down the cliff, but it didn't explode. It was a lump of snow. The man was furious. She was indeed a cunning girl. The man smirked inwardly and kept climbing. The ground was covered by loose snow, and it would take an ordinary person some time to climb up. However, the man could easily cover a distance of loom. The next second, Feng Wu threw something down again. "Die!" Feng Wu shouted again. The man had been tricked once by Feng Wu and decided that he wouldn't be fooled this time. Instead, he charged at her. But this time, it still looked like a snowball, but there was a bomb inside. Not only that, but it was also a very fancy bomb. There was a loud bang and the snowball exploded in front of the man. The explosion was unprecedentedly bright. Involuntarily, he covered his eyes with his right hand to prevent them from getting hurt. To his astonishment, the next second, the snow on the slope began to fall. The man was indeed very capable, but he wasn't powerful enough to defy gravity, so he began to fall with the snow. They were only 100 meters apart. The girl was still resisting. The man smirked. "Kiddo, do you think that trick will work?" Feng Wu ignored him, but she was fiddling with something. She was very busy. The man smirked. "How petty!" After that, the man charged at her again. He hadn't exerted his full power just then, but this time, he was going to make her. However, before he could exert his full power, he heard the sound of an avalanche. The man cursed inwardly. Why did it have to happen now? And it just had to be in his position. Looking up at Feng Wu, the man saw snow rolling down the mountain peak toward her like tidal waves. "I can't let her get buried." That was the man's first thought. The girl was so scheming that she would never be buried alive. Hence, he rushed over and tried to grab Feng Wu. At that critical moment, Little Phoenix growled, "Now." The man watched as Feng Wu charged out at the last moment, and the bird picked her up with its beak. The tons of snow swept toward him like a tidal wave. He had used all his power to reach Feng Wu, so when the avalanche caught him, he was unable to escape. Damn it. The man finally realized that Feng Wu had set him up. The girl had deliberately given her weakness away so that he could grab her, but as it turned out, she had tricked him. Damn it. The man was furious. She had tricked him over and over again. Chapter 37:20, Too Dangerous, 3. Infuriated, the man struck down Feng Wu. Little Phoenix hadn't carried Feng Wu far yet. The man could have used his spiritual essence on himself so that he wouldn't get hurt, but he didn't. He struck Feng Wu from behind. Sensing the danger, Little Phoenix fell to the ground. Even so, Feng Wu was still severely injured. Feng Wu spat out a mouthful of blood. Little Phoenix asked anxiously, "Are you all right?" Cough, cough. Feng Wu coughed and couldn't utter a word. The avalanche had devoured the man and was coming at Feng Wu and Little Phoenix. Little Phoenix knew that the avalanche would only stop the man for a while, so it and Feng Wu had to make sure that they were buried inside. "Let's go." Little Phoenix opened its mouth, picked Feng Wu up, and flew a few kilometers away. But an avalanche didn't happen in just one place. There was a chain reaction. It had spread to other snowfields in the surrounding area. Little Phoenix was exhausted. It looked back in the direction it came from. The man had been completely buried. However, the road leading to those capable cultivators had been buried as well, and they couldn't get in to ask for help even if they wanted to. Infuriated, Little Phoenix shouted, "That man is abominable." The avalanche hadn't ended yet. The snow was moving up and down as if it was going to devour everything. Little Phoenix panicked and was scared out of its wits. Before Feng Wu hit the ground, Little Phoenix swooped down, picked her up, and flew into the sky. It had been hit by the man's last strike as well and was in pain all over. Luckily, it had swallowed a lot of snow ginseng earlier, and the medicine was quickly taking effect, repairing its body. Little Phoenix carried Feng Wu all the way out of the snowfield until they reached a dense forest. Exhausted, Little Phoenix couldn't take it anymore. It fell to the ground and fainted. Feng Wu had been unconscious, to begin with. Her head was bleeding from the impact, but it didn't wake her up either. No one knew how much time had passed after that. The hot sunlight slowly woke Feng Wu up. Involuntarily, she covered her eyes with her hands, and it took her a while to open them again. She then saw an old tree. Where was this place? Feng Wu sat up involuntarily, but the pain made her grunt. That hurt. It wasn't just her chest, but her back as well. Feng Wu recalled what happened before she fainted. Back then, she had tricked the man, but the angry man had also hit her from behind. She was on the verge of collapsing, and there was an avalanche. Little Phoenix had carried her all the way. Where was Little Phoenix? Looking around, Feng Wu soon saw a meter-long colorful bird lying on its back. It was very quiet and didn't seem to be breathing. Feng Wu immediately went up to Little Phoenix and checked its breathing. Luckily, it was breathing, but there was little sign of life. Wake up, wake up. Feng Wu poured some semi-divine potion into Little Phoenix's mouth. Little Phoenix slowly opened its eyes when it heard Feng Wu's voice. It was relieved to see her. With that, it relaxed and fainted for good. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Chapter 37:21, Too Dangerous, 4. Luckily, its life wasn't in danger. Putting Little Phoenix back into her ring space, Feng Wu rose to her feet and looked around. She could sense something. Someone was watching her with a dangerous look in their eyes. Feng Wu wasn't doing well at the moment. She had severe internal injuries and couldn't withstand any more blows. However, her life was in danger, and she had no other choice. The intimidating feeling grew stronger. Feng Wu gripped her fallen star sword. Whoosh! All of a sudden, someone charged at her. It was too fast for Feng Wu to react. Feng Wu had been prepared for this and dodged to the side. When she looked again, she finally saw what it was. It was indeed a big guy. Feng Wu recognized it right away. It was a fire cloud white lion. The lion was at least a peak spiritual lord. Feng Wu almost had a heart attack. She had recovered to the spiritual lord stage, but the man had injured her, and she could only exert the power of a spiritual elder now. She wasn't the lion's match. What a pity! If Little Phoenix had been here, it would have been able to intimidate the lion. Unfortunately, it was too severely injured and had passed out. Before, Feng Wu could have killed the lion with one strike, but now, it was the other way around. The lion stared at Feng Wu with a resolute look in its eyes, which was filled with murderous intention. It wanted to kill her. Feng Wu could sense that the lion was going to kill her. If she couldn't defeat the lion, she would have to outsmart it. Feng Wu stared into the lion's eyes. She wasn't intimidated at all. Instead, she was filled with a fighting spirit. Because if she gave in, she would be dead for sure. Feng Wu quickly scanned the lion from the corner of her eye. Wait. She saw a streak of red on the side of the lion. It was blood. The lion was injured. Feng Wu shook her head inwardly. The lion wasn't injured. It wasn't his blood. Could that blood be the result of the lion devouring its prey? Feng Wu rejected that idea again. If the blood came from its prey, the blood should be on the corner of its mouth or its front paws. It was very unlikely that there was blood on its sides. So, it was very likely. Is your friend injured? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and stared at the lion. Are they badly injured and dying? The lion was going to kill the human prey, but it was surprised by Feng Wu's words. Feng Wu was only trying to sound it out. After that, she kept her gaze on the lion, trying to see the look on its face. As expected, the look on the lion's face changed a little. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. I see that your wife is the one who's injured. As a majestic male lion, it wouldn't stay with other male lions. The only one that could live with it was probably a female lion. The lion kept its cold gaze on Feng Wu without saying a word. Feng Wu said, You should know that here are great human doctors, and I'm one of the best in the human race. I can help you. The lion eyed Feng Wu suspiciously. Seeing that it wouldn't believe her, Feng Wu raised her right hand, and a streak of green light flew toward the lion. Chapter 37:22 Midwife. The lion stared at Feng Wu with an indecipherable look in its eyes. Feng Wu stared back at it. I'm the only one who can save your kin. Otherwise, it's going to die. I have some food if you're short of it. With a wave of her hand, a pile of fresh food rolled out of her ring space. They were chunks of fresh beef. Together, they weighed hundreds of kilograms. The lion looked from Feng Wu to the beef on the ground and nodded at her. It also told Feng Wu to put away the food and take it out when they got there. Feng Wu knew perfectly well that the avalanche wouldn't bury the man for long, so she had to leave as soon as possible. She followed the lion into a dry cave. When they got there, Feng Wu saw another lion lying in the cave. It was covered in blood, and there was a lot of blood on the ground as well. Feng Wu went up to the female lion in a hurry. One look and she knew what it was. It's not just an injury. It's difficult labor. Feng Wu looked at the lion. She's pregnant, and the cub's legs are facing out. That's why she can't give birth. The male lion ran around in circles and bellowed at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, Has she been injured before? Did she roll off a snow mountain? The lion nodded. Feng Wu said, Luckily you ran into me. Otherwise, you would have lost 2 lives. No, 4, because she's pregnant with 3 cubs. This was the first time that the male lion had heard of that, and it was baffling. Feng Wu said affirmatively, Be careful when you're pregnant with 3 cubs. You're all so careless. Feng Wu put her hand on the female lion's belly. Emerald spiritual essence flowed out of her fingertips and jumped around. The lion was barely breathing after the blood loss, but it soon regained some of its vitality. But it was still on guard. Animals were instinctively on guard against humans. Feng Wu comforted it. Don't worry. I don't need to cut you open to take the cub out. We'll go with the flow. Feng Wu turned the first cub around so that its head was facing the exit. Only then did she tell the female lion, save your strength and give birth to it in one go. 1, 2, 3. The female lion could understand what Feng Wu meant. She didn't trust humans at first, but there was something soft in Feng Wu's eyes that made her trust her. Just then, the first cub came out. Feng Wu let out a breath of relief. She had never given birth to a magical beast before and had to work as if she was delivering human babies. Feng Wu gave the cub to the mother lion. The lion burst into tears when it saw the cub. Feng Wu said, "Keep up the good work. There are 2 more." As she spoke, she took out a recover of D0 Tian and fed it to the lion. The lion no longer looked at with caution and trusted her a lot. Before long, the second and third cubs came out, and both were very healthy. Feng Wu stuffed the 3 cubs between the lion's forelegs and rose to her feet. The male lion looked at her uneasily and was about to say something when Feng Wu waved at it. She's no longer in danger, and that's all I can do. If someone asks you about it, don't tell them that you've met me. Otherwise, they'll kill you. Chapter 37:23, Contingency. Feng Wu turned to leave the cave after that. Something then occurred to her, and she asked the lion, "Where were you injured?" The lion was very grateful for Feng Wu's help, so it led the way. Feng Wu followed the lion to a cliff. She looked around and her eyes lit up. She said to the lion, "You can go back now. You should keep the cave safe." The lion suddenly bent its front legs and knelt down in front of Feng Wu. It then turned to leave. Magical beasts can be more grateful than humans sometimes. Feng Wu sighed inwardly. You've been staring at this mountain. Do you have a plan? Little Phoenix came out of Feng Wu's sleeve. Feng Wu glanced at it. Have you rested enough? Little Phoenix nodded at Feng Wu. I'll be fine for now. Little Phoenix looked at Feng Wu up and down. I see that you're going to set someone up again. Feng Wu chuckled. Little Phoenix had to hand it to Feng Wu. She was still in the mood to trick other people. We'll have a much better chance if we run now, Little Phoenix reminded Feng Wu. Feng Wu shook her head. That man has to die. Otherwise, I'll never be able to get away from him. Little Phoenix looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Are you saying that he? Feng Wu nodded solemnly. I suspect that he has a special way to track me. No matter where I go, he'll catch up with me. So, if he's not dead, we won't be able to get away. Little Phoenix sighed. Before, the bird wouldn't have to be afraid of that man at all. One strike and the man would be dead. But now, Little Phoenix looked at Feng Wu. How confident are you? Feng Wu said seriously, I wasn't sure at first, but after seeing the terrain here, I think I have a 20% chance. 20%? That's too little. Little Phoenix objected. Feng Wu said, that lioness fell down from here, but it's not dead. Let's go have a look. Maybe there's a surprise in the terrain down there. After falling for a few hundred meters, Feng Wu saw a protruding stone platform. It was at least 5 meters wide and thick. It was stained with the lion's blood. Looking around, raised her eyebrows a little. She was 20% more confident now. Before long, Feng Wu looked around and told Little Phoenix, I'm 60% confident now. I have to give it a go. I can't keep running like this. Seeing that Feng Wu wouldn't give up, Little Phoenix said in resignation, We'll give it a go, but we still have to run. Don't forget that my master's life depends on you. Feng Wu patted her chest. Don't worry. I cherish my life more than you think. Before the black-robed man arrived, Feng Wu started working on the formation. She knew better than anyone else that the man in black would catch up with her. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because of the good location, Feng Wu had made more than 5 backup plans. All the poisons, bombs, and other resources she had accumulated in her ring space were used up this time. She hoped that with all the arrangements, she would be able to trap the man for good. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.